March 25th, 2025, meeting of the Portsmouth School Board. We apologize for being late. We were discussing issues and we were held up, so sorry about that. But we're really excited tonight to have some students with us. Michelle, thank you so much for organizing this, and someone else organized it, and Heather. Michelle and Heather have organized all of this. We have students shadowing us, the City Council, the School Board, Police Commission, Fire Commission, city employees. So tomorrow is Student Government Day in Portsmouth, and the students will be shadowing us all day long and learning about how hard we all work to get the city to run the way it runs. It's a really fun day, and Councilor Blaylock will say that that's why he decided to run for the City Council, because when he was in high school, he did the Student Government Day. Yep. So that's kind of cool. So maybe we have some future representatives to our city here. So please go to college, come back to Portsmouth after you go to college, and then you can run for school board.
Or don't go to college and still run for school board.
Whatever. That's true. That's a good point. Okay. Can we have the roll call, please, Patty?
Absolutely. Elizabeth Barrett.
Here.
Tish Campbell.
Here.
Nancy Clayberg.
Here.
Pip Clues.
Here.
Brian French.
Here.
Lee Hudson. Byron Maddow.
Here.
Carrie Nolte.
Here.
Lisa Rappaport.
Here.
Eric Moore.
Present.
Nathan Delaney.
Here.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Patty. Okay, we have announcements and recognitions. Zach, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I'll just echo. I'm super appreciative of the Student Government Day, the ongoing growth and rebirth of Student Government Day. I think some of you on the board know that the last several years of my teaching career, all I taught was civics, and we used to bring students to board meetings and to select board meetings in my case. And always thought it was an unbelievably important thing. And I think we're in a time where, for a while, schools have moved away from focusing on what it means to be an effective citizen. What are the roles and responsibilities that come with citizenship? And so much of our attention politically is very often on what's happening in Washington, and not just now. We're going through a period now, but in general, a lot of kind of the day-to-day conversation, when really the stuff that affects most of the people's lives in the community of Portsmouth are happening in sessions like these and sessions like the City Council. So I'm super thankful for Councilor Blaylock getting together with our folks and really trying to re-energize this work. I look forward to, in future years, us as a school community be even more heavily involved than we are now. In some ways, and I'll applaud the municipal side of the equation. I think they're more foot forward on some of this right now than we are, and so I look forward to us being at least a co-equal, if not more, in the future. I'm super excited that students that you took the time to kind of be here and hang out with us tonight. So.
Is there any more students? Like, I have a seat right here. I can move this out of the way. I don't think they're here today.
Oh,
Right?
let me do the pledge.
Somebody want to say
I know,
hi?
I just remembered that.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have an announcement?
Is there anybody else?
Because we forgot to do the Pledge of Allegiance,
That's
so we'll do that now. But if somebody else has an announcement, please.
Do you want to say anything?
I have an announcement.
Oh, Eric.
Our art department's putting on a art collaborative show with Don Darrow in the high school, at the high school on Friday, April 18th, and New Hampshire Chronicle is going to be doing an article with them. We're not sure when they're coming in to interview the students and the staff, but it'll be sometime in early April.
And so where is this going to be on the 18th?
It's going to be at the library
Okay.
at the high school, and it's free to attend.
At what time?
4:30 to 6:30.
Oh, cool. Okay. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll go to the consent agenda. We have 3 minutes of meetings: March 4th, our budget workshop; March 11th, our non-public meeting; and March 11th, our regular meeting. Do we have a motion to approve all 3 meetings?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Yes, Liz.
I just want to add, I know I had brought it up before, but just the idea of adding a YouTube link on these, because they are so brief and you know, not like minutes past, and adding the YouTube link so people could link to the YouTube video when they are looking at minutes.
Is that possible to do that? Okay. Okay, thank you, Liz. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
We need to do roll call vote.
Oh, I'm sorry, we have Tish on Zoom, so we have to do roll call. Okay, Patty.
Consent agenda, Liz Barrett.
Yes.
Tish Campbell.
Yes.
Nancy Claiberg.
Yes.
Pip Clues.
Yes.
Brian French.
Yes.
Lee Hudson. Byron Maddow.
Yes.
Carrie Nolte.
Yes.
Lisa Rappaport.
Yes.
Approved.
Okay, thank you. Now we have public comment. We have 2 people that have signed up for public comment. You have 3 minutes, and please begin by giving us your name and address. And the first one is Kara Carlson. Thank you, Kara. Yes.
Hi, thank you so much for inviting me. My name is Kara Carlson, 51 Marjorie Street, Portsmouth, New Hampshire. I have a handout for all of you. Actually, can I have one? So I'm with the architecture program at the high school, and it's come under my attention that it may be taken out in the 25-26 school budget next year, and I just want to come and talk about it. I started the program when I was a freshman, and I did not know what I wanted to do. But after taking some of the classes and really delving into the design process, I started to realize this is what I want to do for a career. We're dedicated problem solvers. We aim to create efficient, aesthetically pleasing spaces for our community, whether it being for Portsmouth or the greater Seacoast area. And our mission is to basically, all the students at, in the Portsmouth Architecture program are trying to preserve this. We've had students come forward with their projects to present to me to give to you. I sent you all a slideshow, all the school board members a slideshow for reference later. There are 2 slides with full of different projects that our students have created. If we lose this program, we're going to lose career readiness, potential architects, engineers, anything to urban planning, civil engineers, anything like that. We're going to lose internships, extended job opportunities, and we're going to lose opportunity for portfolio development. For the past 3 years, I've started working on my portfolio, and I've actually sent it to some artists and architects, interior designers throughout the city. Without the class, I wouldn't have been able to do that. I wouldn't have found my passion for art either. So it really lends to different areas throughout the school too. And it loses our outlet for creativity and passion. I spend about 2.5 hours in there every day, just creating, either sketching or figuring things out in the software that seem to interest me, things that catch my eye. And if plans 2.9 or 3.97 are chosen, we're requesting, I spoke with my fellow classmates, and we're requesting a junior/senior capstone project in order to finish the pathway. So we'd be able to finish up developing our portfolios and developing our passion for the things so we can go on to colleges like WPI and understand, you know, what it really means to be an architect. Classroom and resources, we want to utilize this as well if it's an option. I understand that the classroom, if the architecture program is taken out, it may be used for other things, but we're requesting at least for our senior year to be able to utilize that and all the resources that entails. Internship possibilities with local design firms. All of us in my class, we're really looking towards either interior design or architecture pathways in our future. We're so passionate about it. We come in every day for an hour and a half, and longer for me, but we spend the entire time just designing, figuring things out, either on paper or in the computer, trying to just figure things out. That's really how we work. We work through sketching, we work through modeling, we work through everything.
Kara, I'm afraid your time is up.
Oh, well, and allocations toward design mentors. So, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next we have Julie Gallo. Gala. Sorry about that.
Missed you all. Julie Gallant.
It's been a minute.
Julie Gallant, 10 Fletcher Street. So I've spent some time taking a break, getting caught up. And essentially why I'm here tonight is simply because there was a parent who came. He had a 12th grader, a 9th grader, and a 6th grader. And I said, if he goes and he speaks up, I have to, obviously. But I think I want to echo what he said, which is essentially, I have kids in the school system, and he simply spoke that his 12th grader isn't going to get the same or his 9th grader and his 6th grader are not going to get the same education as his 12th grader. And I'm just going to start off by saying that I have a 3rd, a 2nd grader, and a preschooler. So essentially, I think it goes without saying that our current political climate is unpredictable, and we are unsure what will be happening with federal funding in the next 4 years. If the school board is not fighting more for our kids, who will be? I'm here tonight to ask the school board members to really think hard about the type of discussion you want to have about the budget tonight. I'm here to ask that difficult conversations are had and everyone's allowed an equal opportunity to speak and offer discussion regardless of their opinion, even if contrary to the consensus of the board. I'm here to ask that you will all work hard to ensure that the children of this community, my children, have the best access to education and understand that this comes from having a robust staff of valued teachers and administrators. Sitting here tonight and simply saying that the 2.9 increase best serves our community is not satisfactory to me. Sitting here tonight and saying I wish we could do more, getting creative, potentially making some tweaks to some of the recommendations that were brought forward by Steve, I think is the conversation that should be had tonight. We've heard from a student just speaking, and I think that brings a lot to the table about maybe some of the creativity that could be had here tonight. I do understand that when you do go to the city council, you are presenting what they are voting on, and I think that there might be an opportunity for some tweaks to some of the proposals tonight, and I would ask that that is more so what the discussion is had this evening about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Julie.
We didn't know there was a sign-up sheet.
Okay. Do we have anybody else in the room that would like to speak? Pass this on. What do you
Sign
want?
up sheet just mentioned.
Wait.
Thank you. I also didn't realize there was a sign-up sheet because I'm usually at the table.
That's okay.
Yes.
You don't have to sign.
Thank
but
you.
If you can, it's good.
My name is Tally Westerberg. I have an 11th grader and an incoming 9th grader, and I'm here from Greenland. I'm also here to discuss the budget. I don't know if it's regular protocol for you, Madam Chair, to forward emails that you get to the entire board from constituents. No. Okay. So I am here to just express my gravest concern about the reduction in the school counseling position. As a matter of clarification, I'm also a licensed clinical school social worker, so I come at this with 25 years of experience being in a well-functioning school counseling team. The American School Counseling Association recommends a 250-to-1 ratio of students to school counselors. I don't see any way you can slice 1,000 by 3 and get to 250. And I think to make this move when we are in a national adolescent public health crisis around mental health is really just downright dangerous when even kids who are well insured have to wait months and months to get into outpatient mental health counseling. I think the other part of this that really is unfortunate is that you haven't developed a data-driven perspective and delivered that, at least in any of the materials that I've seen posted in any of the budgetary information about how a reduction in school counseling will impact. There's charts about teaching positions. There's charts about science classes at the high school that are 47% under-enrolled, and yet school counselors have access to every student in the building. And you can ask about how many referrals to community mental health does a PHS school counseling team make? How many times have they needed to access emergency mental health care or the rapid response mobile crisis? How many students are served under a 504 condition, and how that has drastically increased since COVID? And who manages those 504s? How many college applications are the counseling team processing in a different way than they were maybe even 10 years ago based on the number of schools that kids apply to? That it's different. And really, these are just the beginning of questions that should be asked when you're thinking about considering the cut of a school counseling position. I know in one of the 3.9% budget increase was talked about a school district-wide counseling director or a school district-wide social worker. I think those are great, but this is a both-and discussion. This is not an either-or discussion when our kids' mental health is on the line. And you talk about equity. Every kid who is in that building has access to the school counselor, and they should all have equal access to the school counselor. That's not going to be how it goes if your school counselors are serving 350 kids. It can't be done. And the last thing I will say is this will put Portsmouth High School at the bottom, literally the bottom of school counseling staff of any school in the Seacoast. And that is not anything that parents who care about the whole well-rounded being of their children can get behind. And so, all of you student government kids, I love, love, love that you are here. I love that you spoke in advocacy already. Love that. Because in case you get sidelined by all the heated conversation that you're going to hear tonight, this is about you. We are here for you. We are here for you. They are here for you, to provide for you. And so your voice really matters, and every person in this room's voice really matters. So you have a say in your future. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Petra Huda. Oh, Esther. Oh, Esther, you want to go first?
I think I'm on there first.
Okay.
Good evening, school board. I want to thank the school administrators for putting out the answer to some of our questions. I appreciate it, and I had a brief second to look at it. I do want to iterate.
Name and address.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Esther Kennedy, 41 Pickering Ave, Portsmouth. I do want to remind everyone that in the last 6 years, we've gone up $20 million. That doesn't mean we need to cut school counseling. As a public school administrator, I'm an advocate for that. But that does mean we need to look at our budget. I talked to Nate the other night at the city council meeting, and he told me a third of the individuals that are in our schools are from surrounding communities they send in. That was his quote. I don't know the exact number, but that would be something that would be interesting. If that is accurate, that means that Portsmouth has 1,619 students. So that means that we have 1,619 students. And I'm going to go right there to the out-of-district guys. That is 5,220,546. That is for Portsmouth students only. That is $3,225.55 per student. Just imagine what we could do if we had that money. As you know, I'm a director of student service. I deal with special needs, and I am very upset at the height of that number. We cannot have this many kids going to out of district. As I've shared to you in the past, I have 1,200 in a school district, and I have not placed a child in out of district in 17 years. Folks, we need to come up with a plan. And as you're contemplating this budget that has gone up quite a bit, we need to think about how we're treating all children. And I ask you to do that. I also ask you to think about how families can afford to live in Portsmouth. So we're asking you to take on a big job. Look at where money is. The $700,000 in technology. Do we really need the $700,000 in technology? We never used it before. Those kinds of things. There's things in that budget. We don't need to take away counselors. You really don't need to even take away teachers that are existing. I have suggested over the year that we look at retirements.
Esther, you're at 3 minutes.
Thank you. But good luck. But I think there's ways to lower the budget.
Thank you, Esther. Petra.
Peter Huda, 280 South Street. And I finally found the 3 options that the superintendent had given to you. And I went through that, and I do have some areas of concern that I hope is discussed tonight. And I guess I'm going to go on the page that I found this. This is the 3 potential frames for budget making, and this is on page 12. It's positional swaps in option 2. And to follow up on the rest of the discussion tonight, on especially on the counseling, the request is for a director of counseling at an increased salary. And then if you go down farther, they're going to actually eliminate a counselor and put in a social worker. So the thing that kind of struck me as weird is this position would oversee K-12 counseling programming and evaluate counselors while maintaining a small caseload. The management part of this, I would ask you to really consider if this is necessary. So going up to the management level with a counsel and a social workers when paras are needed and teachers are needed, and taking away another counselor for a social worker down there actually contradicts the reasoning for this below. So eliminating the other thing that was very concerning and upsetting to me is eliminating a classroom teacher for a maintenance supervisor. I urge you to look at your management to worker ratios in all of your support positions. This, you have 5 positions in here now, and you have a director, and you want to add another middle management in here. I think this would be better used to fill one of either the social worker or the counseling position. Just my opinion, but a lot of these were just, unacceptable to me. The other thing that I would question, and I'm going to wait till your discussion later on all of this, is some of the answers that were given by Mr. Cisneros. I have questions on the answers. So I would like to address that later if I have an opportunity. But all of this was finally put out today. The other thing is we have never seen the 4.29 decrease put out on the website, and this information, nobody can find it. It was only with a link into to the agenda. That is not public presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Petra. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Yes. State your name and address, please.
Sure. Good evening. Dave Cosgrove, 174 Echo Ave, Portsmouth, New Hampshire. I'll bounce around a bit, but I'll try to be brief. I guess one thing I'd like to say as a parent, I was disappointed that I felt like we immediately jumped to the conclusion that we needed to reduce the level of instruction and teachers in particular, as opposed to looking more broadly. When I looked year over year at 25 versus 26 budget, I could clearly see that the vast majority of the increase had nothing to do with teachers' salaries. Maybe some of the people who accepted retirement really wanted to retire, I assume, and that can help alleviate some of the pressure. But what I don't want to have happen, and I know members of the board mentioned this, maybe it was a couple of meetings ago, where those people vacated shouldn't drive our strategic priorities going forward in terms of where we focus our energy. I will never be able to speak as articulately eloquently as this young woman, but I will say also that my daughter, I have 2 daughters, one is a graduating senior. She stumbled upon architecture late in her high school career. She benefited greatly from art instruction from Mr. Moore to help set up that foundation. And this fall, she intends to attend a great school and focus on design and architecture. She also benefited greatly from French instruction. So I just ask you to really be mindful, and I know that you are, but other than that, the out-of-district placements I could clearly see is a large percentage increase in the budget, but I won't profess to understand how to alleviate that. I would, talking to some, it sounds like perhaps we could hire expertise in-house within the town to reduce that number. I think those are my major points. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Anyone else? Do we have anyone on Zoom that would like to speak?
No hands are raised.
No Zoom participants. Okay. Thank you, everyone. We will move on. Zach, I'll hand it over to you to introduce Phil.
So we have been bringing in some folks to have conversations with all of you around activity that is happening that is supportive of some of our strategic objectives, and most of this activity predates the adoption of the strategic plan, where these things were in motion. So I'll introduce Phil Davis to introduce the rest of the presenting team to talk a little bit about some activity that's happening at the middle school right now.
Thank you. Phil Davis, principal of Portsmouth Middle School. I'm here with...
Hi, Nicole Stonerk. I reached out to some of you to be on our Shark Tank. Our students are still waiting for their millions of dollars, Nancy. If that's okay. That you know, they're waiting on it.
So, you know, as part of the look and ask to speak to the school board and to the community about what's going on in the schools, it's actually an opportunity that I'm speaking out of turn for all administrators, but that I actually miss. I do like getting in front of the school board and having a chance to talk about what's going on at the middle school. So the ask this year, when we were looking at Portrait of a Graduate, was in adopting that to say, well, what are we already doing that meets the needs, or that meets the goals that we've set forth? And so Dr. McLaughlin asked for us to put forth several different items, and then I imagine his process was like, okay, how do I look at the different schools and highlight a lot of these different areas? So one of the pieces that I brought forward is from Nicole's classroom, something I've observed, and you know, if we look at our larger picture, Portrait of a Graduate, we are looking, it says, our community strives to create a passion for knowledge, global awareness and community contribution, collaboration and communication, transferable skills, personal well-being, empathy, and kindness. And this is something that Nicole will speak to better than I, but something that she does often with her students, and it really highlights, I think, three of these different areas. One, most certainly and most easily seen, is collaboration and communication. And the definition under that Portrait of a Graduate was learners who exhibit strong communication and collaboration skills that enable them to amplify diverse perspectives and skillfully navigate complex challenges. I believe it also affects transferable skills, where learners who possess practical life skills and strong work habits, enabling them to adapt and thrive as independent adults. And lastly is passion for knowledge. You see a lot of students get very excited in Nicole's class. She does some pretty cool things, a little out-of-the-box thinking, and I think some of the students in here have had her would say that she gets excited about what she does, which is fantastic. So learners who are intrinsically motivated and well prepared to chart their own paths using curiosity, creativity, academic prowess, and critical thinking. So I'm going to turn the slideshow over to Nicole, who kind of talk her way through what she does in her board meetings.
Yeah. So a big thing is I call them board meetings, and it's just because we use giant whiteboards, and it's really awesome because it's a giant board that takes up the whole lab bench that multiple students can interact with. And some big skills that I take away from it is collaboration, because they create their own teams, and when I say we're having a board meeting, they grab their boards and they go with their teams of their choice. High engagement. I think it's great expression of learning. I try to do visual and creative and written. We're using manipulatives, lots of different things on our whiteboards. Building the skill of presenting to their peers and just me. So sometimes it's like small group and I'm coming up to the board and I'm being like, tell me, you know, what's going on here. Lots of listening. I think at the age of 13 and 14, they tend to struggle a little bit with how to talk to each other, and they struggle sometimes when someone's doing the leadership and someone's goofing off, and it's really building that skill of listening to others. Building confidence, which tends to be in all of the struggles of I don't want to talk in front of 25 kids, but I'll talk in front of my 3 peers that I picked. And I tend to usually see a lot of leadership in my board meetings of the person who always takes the board, takes the marker, and kind of builds. So I did show a couple pictures of some of the things. This is one example of the board meeting where we use manipulatives and we're moving things around on the board. Again, they pick their groups, and small group, but they're collaborating and they're talking to one another. I got another one there. a lot of written expression. So here's an example of them writing things and expressing. As you can see, I have multiple students working on one board. You can go ahead and click for me. Presenting, here's a group of students that are presenting a formative writing on their giant whiteboard to one another. And keep hitting for me. Creative, so this is actually a storyboard of where they had to figure out how does their phone charge. And they had to create a storyboard of what happens before that. Here's another one of like a formative assessment where, again, our students are working with each other and formatively expressing, you know, the content I need them to know. I did include more, which was some survey results, which maybe it didn't result in. I don't know if you keep clicking, it might have not updated. Oh, yeah, here we go. So, yeah, sweet. I was looking at yours, and I was like, oh, they're not there. So I did ask my students today, because I'm like, I'm about to present, and I need to know what I'm talking about. And so I did ask them, I was like, what do you enjoy these board meetings? And 97%, I'm not going to call out the 2 that said no, but they do enjoy this. Like, it's one of those things where, you know, you think, oh my gosh, I got to go work with my groups, but they do enjoy these board meetings. And I asked them, you know, typically, do you work with the same group? Because I do think that's part of the collaboration piece and maybe something I can work a little bit more with. But do you work with the same group? Do you tend to mix your groups? Because that is part of it, where they look at each other and they're like, oh, so-and-so's not working with me. Like, they're distracted. And I'm like, go figure it out. Like, no more than 4. So find your group. And I see a little bit of where they're now learning of like, oh, so-and-so doesn't do it. I want to work with this kid. And so 89% of them are still working with the same group. And I kind of asked, what skills are you coming off of this? And a big part is socializing, obviously, with a bunch of 13 and 14-year-olds. But they're learning from their peers. They're allowing creativity. Someone takes the leadership. They're learning outside of just me lecturing. It's increasing my participation and even confidence, which I think is huge. 61% of students said they feel more confident when they're speaking amongst their group as opposed to a class. The presenting skills are low, but we'll work on that. But small group teaching, which is great for me, going around, building skills for group work. How do you talk to a student who's not doing the work? And their learning is overall 61% more enjoyable when they get to know they're having their board meetings, and I think that's huge. And those are just a few quotes. But I'm very passionate about this style of teaching, and I think it's controlled chaos a little bit. It's a lot of talking. But that's what I want in my classroom, and so I hope it's a representation of this portrait of a graduate that you were trying to build, and I think bringing this into my classroom is awesome, and I will stand by it, and I'm not going to put Lily on the spot over there, but she's a part of it, and yeah, I think it's good. I love it. So
can you talk about why you think controlled chaos is an effective or maybe more effective teaching technique than some other approaches?
Pardon? Was that a question or a statement? Because I'm like, oh, it's 100%.
Why do you believe in controlled chaos?
I believe in controlled chaos because I want to hear their voices and not mine. And so I think if anyone were to walk by, it sounds like chaos. You hear voices, you might hear talking over each other, you might feel, as someone who doesn't have control of a classroom, chaos. But I'm directing those conversations. Those conversations are happening in our content, and it's the discourse that I want, and that's all I care about. As long as you're talking about science and you're doing an investigation or whatever, to me, it's the best sound in the classroom, and I think to maybe an outsider, it feels like chaos, and so that's why I like to say controlled chaos, because I'm manipulating the way the conversation's going. So as long as they're talking about science, that's all I care about.
And I think also in that they've got that time constraint and an output that they have to come out with. So, even though they're talking in 88% like the socialization, they're also on task. They have to get this done by this point because here comes Ms. Stonerk, who's saying, present to me now. And somebody's going to be called up to present the knowledge and information that they had that time to synthesize.
Mm-hmm.
I love that you're just letting the kids really have so much ability to kind of take charge of what they want to talk about and what they want to learn. I'm curious if this is trickling out to any other classes, like outside of your classroom, like any of your colleagues copying you?
I don't see board meetings necessarily.
I don't think. Maybe they do it in different methods. I think the giant whiteboards is what I see a lot. Phil would know a little bit more than I do, but I think controlled chaos tends to be the theme.
It's kind of a middle school thing.
Yeah, I think it's a middle school thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of classes where they are doing small group presentations. The majority of classes are doing small group work. I mean, it's not a school anymore where you walk and see, rows of desks, unless it's maybe some sort of assessment day or something, where there's a lot of group work, a lot of collaboration, a lot of kind of brainstorming, and then synthesizing the information to put out. So it's just a unique way to do it.
I think having that student ownership is really important. I know there are definitely sometimes when I walk in to your room and there's like Star Wars music going on,
Yeah,
and stuff, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but I dig it.
You came on Star Wars Day.
So-
But yeah, I think it's engagement, and I think I'll dress up as a detective and walk in and be like, you're all investigators today, and you have a board meeting of you're presenting the criminal or whatever it is, and it's climate change is the criminal. But I don't know, I think it's the engagement, it's the buying in, it's the characters, it's the collab. I'd rather them talk to each other than me talk at them, and that tends to show in the survey. So yeah.
But I think that also requires there's a lot of skill. I think it'd be easy for people to be like, oh, we're just letting kids talk. There's a ton of skill in trying to create those situations where there is control to the chaos that then eventually leads to the outcomes that you want, that are student driven, but they're inside of your sandbox that you're creating on a daily basis. And that takes a ton of skill. And then I think the other thing I know I've seen in your space and in a lot of spaces around the district, and also a lot of this is built around relationships with kids and students trusting a staff member that they care about me as an individual, and also they're going to keep me safe as a learner inside of this chaotic experience. So because there's a lot of risk taking in your classroom for kids with peers, but I think what's always clear in your space, and like I said, in a lot of other spaces I see in the district, are people being really thoughtful about how do I give you an opportunity to take that social risk in pursuit of learning in front of your peers, and even when you flame out, that it's like, it's okay. That's part of what we're doing. It's part of how we're learning. So I really appreciate the thoughtfulness of your design when I go into your space.
And I appreciate you saying that. I do think the team dynamic at where I teach really helps. Like the rapport, it's the easiest thing at the grade level I do it is because of our team dynamic. So.
Liz.
Thank you guys for coming tonight, and so I guess I just wanted to was wondering around. Phil, you had brought up the strategic plan, and you're presenting a highlight here of how Nicole is meeting some of our strategic plan goals. Do you see this? I think Lisa asked this question, and maybe this is what she was getting at a little bit too, but do you see that, having that curriculum coordinator position coming down to the middle school, helping other teachers sort of do this position? That would be where you're highlighting this into the strategic plan. Obviously, one teacher's doing this, and this is something you like, and it's meeting this, some strategic plan goals. Would you foresee that position helping other teachers adopt this type of workspace within their classroom too?
I think curriculum coordination is not going to, in its first year, directly impact instruction in methodology of instruction. So I think, and that's really what we're talking about, is Nicole's creativity and ability to capture the energy of the students and redirect it in a positive way. I think the first goal really of curriculum coordination is getting everyone on the same page, laying out curriculum, making sure there's no gaps in our, from 5 to 9 really for us, because we're going to look below, we're going to look ahead. Once that work is complete and ensuring that we've got a seamless continuum of learning in science and English and music and all the different departments, then you can start looking at assessments, and when you start looking at assessments, okay, what are we learning from what the kids are learning? In Nicole's classroom, and Chris Rose is her grade level partner. So when they're giving assessments on the same day, you say, okay, well, here's the way I instructed this lesson. Here's the way you instructed that lesson. How do our results, differ? So I think that's after you've got the curriculum piece set, then you start looking at that piece. On the tail end of that, you're starting to look at instructional strategies. So. Yes, but it's not an immediate. It would not be the first piece that falls into place with having a curriculum coordinator. Would not be to affect the instruction, but that would be the long goal.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Terry, Brian?
Thank you for that info. I'm curious, it's related to what you just said around the assessment and the comparison. So is the formative assessment, like I noticed you're using like competency based, is that group level, and are there individual competencies, and are there certain learners that excel in this environment and others that struggle, or how do you balance the learning styles, I guess?
Sure.
Oh, for sure. So there is formative group in that, where it's like you're formatively making this as a group, whatever. And I do individual ones. So whether that is a little CER, which claim evidence reasoning, where it's individual and it's how do you speak in a group? It's how do you, I'm trying to think of the way you perform in a lab. So I do a whole bunch, which is why I like to highlight the board meetings, because I have visual board meetings that there's a kid who's I've never seen put a marker in their hand and they're the ones taking charge, and then I have the literal students who are the writers who are writing it all, but I'm hearing the voices of the visual ones. And so that's one reason I feel like my boards are very versatile in that. And then when it comes to the summative part, which is what you want, I want to make sure all of my learners are being assessed correct, or in the way that they can perform best, is where we do quizzes for the students that are great, the project-based learning for my creative students, and the verbal retakes for the students who struggle. Like, I don't know if that exact example is like, I feel like if we start going into summative talk, like all of those are being assessed at the level that they need to be, and providing those opportunities for all of them. Board meetings are more of just like the fun, creative, different, what are you going to get type light work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Carrie. Brian?
Yeah, your board meetings sound way more fun than ours.
I was like, guys, I'm going to a board meeting today. And they're like, you're having whiteboards? I'm like, oh, no. Not that type.
I think it's great. I do see, I get to actually see it in your classroom, which was great. Nancy and I went in for Shark Tank, which was, they had a little science, what was it, cleaning up the ocean, I think it was, and all these kids had, they were like trying to pitch their ideas of how to clean up the ocean, and they're like, give me money for my idea. Of course, my Ariana and Isabella, my girls, were like, you didn't make me a big offer, right?
There was pressure on that one.
But just seeing the skills of the presentation, like a lot of that stuff about what you're doing in terms of how they interact and work with their peers is like what the real world is like. You have to be able to communicate. You go to the boss to get some clarification. You work with your peers. You have meetings. So it's like it's a lot louder than a normal thing, but you see the benefit to it, because kids need to be able to work together, especially when they're out in the world. People don't solve problems by themselves. So it was great to see that. It's great that it's congruent with the strategic plan, and yeah, it's great to be a part of that too. Thank you.
Well, I hope you come back next year. I hope a lot of you come next year for Shark Tank. But I just hope you guys, yes, the board meetings are a great representation of what I do in my one classroom, but I actually love that it's in my own classroom, because if students were doing board meetings in ELA, they're doing them in social studies, they're doing them in science, then it's not so special in my room. And I think as a team, we really make collab look very different. And so, yeah, it's great what I'm doing, but in ELA, they're doing it much differently, but it's the same skills. So I honestly like to keep it sacred in my world, but yeah, I have a really good team over there.
Thank you. It really was enjoyable being there for the Shark Tank. The creativity was incredible. The inventions that they had to clean up the environment were just...
Well, they said you were the nicest, so they were always like, she said yes to everything, so you get all your money away. Awesome. And they're still waiting for their payout, but they're like, Nancy's so nice. She gives us all the money. You didn't hate anything.
How much does she owe you?
Oh, she owes millions to Portsmouth Middle School. So we hope to have you next year.
It was an
really
enjoyable
special
time. It really wasn't. Somebody else went. Liz, did you go?
Ryan was there a couple
I was sick, yeah.
We got a lot of Portsmouth high school students came too, which was really special to see them. So
So thank you.
Well, thank
That
you.
was great.
I was going to say one more thing I wanted, and I think you were speaking to it, is that as we go and we get aligned on curriculum, I think we'll be doing work on pedagogy, but I think it is important that we still we hire really good people who are skilled in their place, and we give them professional license to do creative things that they know are going to work, that fit within their skill set, that are designed around the kids in their classrooms. So I think as we move out of some of the curricular alignment, which is going to be years of work for us, as we move towards conversations around pedagogy, it will be, I think, broad strokes around ideas around pedagogy, and not like everyone's got to do board meetings,
Right.
And I think that's important that we continue
trademark
to
that.
empower.
Right.
Yeah, we continue to
Trademark
empower our staff to make those types of choices. So.
Thank you for listening.
Thank
you.
Thank you. That was great. Thank you, Phil, for all your hard work in the middle school. For how many years now?
How many years?
You stopped counting.
11.
Wow.
Okay.
I was going to say that I don't know how, almost 8 o'clock. So I think students, we're not kicking you out. You can stay as long as you want, but also it's a good opportunity if you need to go. 8 o'clock was the discussion for
Yep.
you guys. So. And I know some of you guys as well. We were more than happy to hang around too.
But the drama's coming up next.
Yeah. Drama is coming now. That's a good word to use, Liz. when you're comfortable, please feel free to.
Yeah, whenever you guys
You want to stay up a little later?
Nathan, that doesn't apply to you.
I know. No such luck.
Okay, let's move on to old business. We
Superintendent's
have
report.
the,
Well, you have
those
the
email
email
summary.
summary, just as we we don't spend a lot of time, but those are there. Those are all emails the board received in whole, so it's all things that you've seen before. It's just a reminder of those are the types of things that you were emailed about. So, and then old business. Old business gets us back to where we were, which was hopefully putting us in a position to finalize our budget conversation. Now, by charter, we are supposed to submit our stuff by March 15th. It was not this board's fault. We were asked to move everything back in terms of our process. So anyways, I'll turn it over to you to run that
Can I
conversation.
make a motion to suspend the rules and move up new business to consider Cynthia Young's sabbatical?
Second.
All in favor?
Roll call.
Roll call. Liz Barrett.
Elizabeth
Elizabeth Barrett.
Sorry. Yes.
Tish Campbell.
Yes.
Nancy Clayberg. Pip Clues.
Yes.
Brian French.
Yes.
Byron Maddow.
Yeah.
Carrie Nolte.
Yes.
Lisa Rappaport.
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to talk about that?
Patty can
Yes,
take it through that.
so we went through the process with the committee, with the sabbaticals that were submitted, and the one that the committee did put forward to the superintendent to bring to the board was the one proposed by Cynthia Young, and the letter is attached. This is a little unique in that Cynthia's sabbatical is tied to a Fulbright scholarship, and we right now know that the Fulbright scholarship funding is frozen. So I've included a sample motion here to make such that it would allow the board to approve the scholarship or the sabbatical contingent upon receiving the scholarship. If we don't hear something from the State Department by May 1st, this would go into effect for next year, and then we'll deal with next year and see what happens next year. So,
Okay. Do we have a motion? Why don't we put a motion on the table first, and then we can have discussion?
Motion to approve sabbatical for Cynthia Young for the 25-26 school year, contingent upon receiving official notification from the U.S. State Department of her Fulbright Scholarship Award. If such funding is not confirmed by May 1st, 25, the sabbatical will instead be approved for 26-27.
Second.
Any discussion?
She deserves it.
I'm sorry, you have to speak during public comment. You can't speak now.
That is Ms. Young, but
You can whisper to Nathan and he. No, I'm just
Can I make a motion to let Cynthia speak?
I don't know.
since you won't know till May 31st.
Yeah.
Oh. That's not what you would like to let us know information on May 31st. Okay. Mary.
So I am super excited by this opportunity. I think I would just want us to consider an alteration of the motion. That if the committee, and I don't remember the process, but if the committee appreciated this and wanted to put this forward, and with the uncertainty of Fulbright funding, I would rather modify it to be if the sabbatical goals were feasible, so that as we see private funders stepping up to fund some of these things, or there's alternative funding sources, we're not making it contingent just on Fulbright funding for this project. So
I would
So is that a
second
friendly
that
amendment?
friendly amendment.
Do you want to?
okay, let me.
But could we also modify the date at the same time?
What does that mean?
Well, if she's not going to receive it
Oh, the
approval
31st.
until the
May
31st,
May
then we should
31st.
probably
Did you do the sample motion
say
as
June 1st.
I did, so yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it should
So,
say June.
I would say a modification would be contingent upon her receiving support for
Funding
for the sabbatical project, and then modify May 1st to May 31st.
How about if you keep the U.S. State Department of her Fulbright scholarship / or other funds, something like that. Hoping that the Fulbright comes through. Everybody
It's
is-
fine. Either way, I think it
Accomplishes the
accomplishes the goal, so I'm good with that. And the 31st, yeah.
Okay, does everybody like the, who made the original motion?
I did.
Byron, who seconded?
Brian.
Yeah, so I'm good with it.
Okay.
You're good with it.
Okay,
Any
I
more
made the change.
discussion on it? Liz?
Can we just clarify whether this would be paid or unpaid leave, and what the position, how would the school fill her teaching role with a substitute or a long-term substitute, or what would that look like? I mean, especially with the dates, given that we don't know at this point. So, I mean, would there be hires over the summer to fill position? Can you speak more to that?
I think that so my understanding is we would be paying partial. So that would have, so if we make the decision, it does have a budgetary impact in terms of our bottom line, because we would be partially funding a position, and then we would need to potentially fill that position with another person, or we would need to reallocate within the social studies department at the high school and just take the existing courses and distribute them across the remaining staff. And I don't know if, Steve, to what extent you've been involved in any of this conversation?
Yep, I have. So we've dealt with sabbaticals many times just in my 3 years. So they're a combination of compressed courses or distributed and/or long-term subs and/or one-year permanent employees to replace. So we've done a whole combination of staffing models when the board has approved sabbaticals successfully.
So what I'm hearing is that we don't have a specific answer to. I mean, the most likely the budget kind of neutral solution would be a redistribution of the existing courses across the department, so that we're not, because then potentially what we're doing is we would add to one of the other budget proposals a portion of a position to cover the cost of the sabbatical. If we were also then in turn going to fully fund a replacement position at the same time. So I think more likely scenario is what we would talk about, unless we were going to specifically add funding tonight, would be we would look at the redistribution across the existing staff.
Any other questions? Shall we vote? Please, Patty?
Yes, Elizabeth Barrett.
No.
Tish Campbell. Yes. Nancy Clayberg.
Yes.
Pip Clues.
Yes.
Brian French.
Yes.
Byron Maddow.
Yes.
Carrie Nolte.
Yes.
Lisa Rappaport.
Yes.
7-1 passes. Approved.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Good luck, Cynthia.
Yeah. Come on, Feds. Let's come through with that
Yeah,
night.
right.
So-
Good luck.
Okay, we will move on to, as Liz called it, the drama of the evening. We have to pass our budget for the next school year.
Motion to suspend rules to move up the, I thought we were doing all new business. I mean, at this point, we're going to be here all night with this budget stuff, so I feel like we should get whatever we need on the new business out of the way. So I do a motion to suspend the rules to move up any new business that's immediate, such as the teacher contracts, whatever else the superintendent feels, and
I
move
think
that
those
up.
would be
into
the two that would be most important, that I don't think take a ton of time, would be taken care of.
Or any of the policies.
The, under new business, B and C, consideration and approval of teacher contracts, and then C, the approval of these absences.
Okay. Do we have a motion to move those up?
Motion to move those
Do we have
up.
a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Discussion. It's just B and C.
Just
Yes.
B and C.
Just B and
Yes.
C.
Thank you.
Discussion.
Well, we have to have a roll call vote to move them up first.
Sounds current.
Then we have a
Yes,
discussion.
I would like to have discussion about
Let's
moving
have
them up.
discussion on the motion.
Oh, discussion on the motion. Yes.
I do believe the budget conversation and the B, consideration and approval of teacher contracts are related, and I would want to see that excluded. So I
Let's
would
do C.
recommend just doing C, or advocate for just doing C.
Okay. Who made the motion?
Liz.
Liz, is that okay with you?
I don't, based on my understanding is that it doesn't. So I don't, I would keep the motion on the table.
Okay, then we'll have to vote on B and C, both moving up right now. Is there any discussion on B and C besides what Carrie
Or
just
we
said?
vote.
We vote. Is there any other discussion
On the motion.
on the motion? Okay, let's vote.
Motion to suspend the rules and move up letter B and C under new business. Elizabeth Barrett.
Yes.
Tish Campbell.
Yes.
Nancy Clayberg.
Yes.
Pip Clues.
No.
Brian French.
Yes.
Byron Maddow. Oh, gone, sorry, I'm busy. Carrie Nolte.
No.
Do we have 2/3?
Lisa Rappaport.
No.
I guess we don't.
We don't have 2/3.
Byron, how would you vote?
We definitely don't have
I
2/3.
would make a motion just to move forward C, if anyone is
Second.
interested.
Okay,
Hold
so
on.
we're back to just discussing,
Move up the leave of absences.
yes.
And that was, hold on. That was Lisa making that motion. Was there a second?
Carrie.
Carrie.
So we're just voting on moving up C. Any discussion? Okay, let's have the vote.
Elizabeth Barrett.
Yes.
Tish Campbell.
Yes.
Nancy Clayberg.
Yes.
Pip Clues.
Yes.
Brian French.
Yes.
Byron Maddow.
Yeah.
Carrie Nolte.
Yes.
Lisa Rappaport.
Yes.
Passed.
Okay, so we will discuss the consideration and approval of leave of absences. I'll turn it over to Zach.
Yep, so you have two teachers who are requesting a leave of absence for the 25-26 school year. Both are connected with maternity leaves. These are typically ones that we would approve. Both of these would be positions that we would fill with year-long, long-term subs for the upcoming year.
Motion to approve both leaves of absence.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Lisa Rappaport.
Yes.
Carrie Nolte.
Yes.
Byron Maddow.
Yes.
Brian French.
Yes.
Pip Clues.
Yes.
Nancy Clayberg.
Yes.
Tish Campbell.
Yes.
Elizabeth Barrett.
Yes.
Passed.
Do people want to move up the consideration approval of policies before we go into the budget?
I don't think we'll get
Are there
there.
any critical?
Yeah, it is critical.
They're
correct?
all critical, and I think we discussed at policy to vote on them as a block, because these are the policies related to Title IX, and the 2020 Title IX rule was reinstated back on January 9th, and we want our policies to reflect the current requirements of the rule.
Do we have a motion to move up the consideration and approval of policies?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Can we have a roll call to move it up?
Lisa Rappaport?
No.
Carrie Nolte?
No.
Byron Maddow?
No.
Lee, not here, sorry. Brian French?
Yes.
Pip Blues? No. Nancy Clayberg?
Yes.
Tish Campbell?
No.
Liz Barrett?
Yes.
No 2/3.
Okay. All right, we're back to our budget. Okay, but keep in mind, we have to do those policies tonight, so. Okay, superintendent.
So I think you're most of them. We included two different sets of things for you tonight. One's a repeat from the other evening, but was posted in plenty of time before this meeting, and that's the three potential frames document. When we talk about three suggested scenarios. One that would, we talked about this in a slideshow at the last public meeting. One that would come in at a 2.89% increase over the previous year's spending. That included when we had the buyouts that we had, some of the savings, not all the savings, from our originally presented budget came out of not replacing some of those positions. We still would replace some. So that's the option, the first option. The second option, as we presented it to you, was looking at some select swap outs and taking some of those positions that folks who took the early retirement incentive for, and swapping out. I'm sorry. And the second option is swapping out them all, and taking each of those and basically reallocating the funds from the positions that some of the positions we decided we did not need to reinstate, and then reallocate those towards other strategic initiatives. And then the last of those three options was somewhere in between, and it included some targeted switch outs while still holding on, still allowing some of the money that would have been money in positions that would have been associated with other positions to go. The second of those three options is a 3.97% increase over the previous fiscal year. And the last of those three options is a 3.4% increase over the previous year. And of course, this is all in relation to folks who are now turning in. Some of this dialogue is shaped by guidance provided by the council to the city manager's office around trying to come to the council with a 2.9% increase across the board. And so that discussion that we've had with the manager's office includes the idea that once again they would pick up the difference in what we go through, the 5 unions that we're negotiating with now, that through a contingency line in the city they would pick up those costs, and so that those costs are not built into any of these proposals. So this is separate from what we deemed at one point talking about COLA, but those anticipated raises that would come from those 5 unions it lives somewhere else in all 3 of these proposals, and then you have a 2.9, a 3.4, and a 3.9 set of proposals to guide discussion. That's it. So we're happy to. So we have that document for you. We also, and I think Ms. Kennedy referenced, we did also try to gather a collection of questions that through the course of the process that people had asked us that we hadn't necessarily explicitly responded to. If we had previously responded to them in a presentation or something like that, we didn't necessarily put those into this set, but we did want to go back and look at some of those questions and give responses to some of that stuff. And then in some cases where we wanted to provide you some data visualization about kind of some of those answers, some of that was provided as well. And so we're happy to engage you in a conversation about where you want to go, based on all the different things we talked about over the course of the last 2 months.
Did you have your hand up?
Yeah, just a question.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to I know it was mentioned tonight, just some clarification on the places where you are reallocating, I should say, and you have position for position.
Yeah.
You're not necessarily meaning swapping positions. It's more just happened to be a line item there, like when they talked about the teacher versus like
it's not
just
saying
money,
we value
just a
this
money
over that. It's
right.
really
Okay.
and those things aren't meant to because you have those things lined up. It's not supposed to be like maintenance coordinator versus
Right.
you
I
know,
just wanna make sure
teacher
that was
or this
clear.
versus that. A lot of those were basically doing exactly what you're saying, which was looking at the dollar amount that was associated with the person that previously inhabited the position that was part of his budget book, and then saying, if we were to reallocate that dollar amount in another way, this is a ballpark, something that kind of lines up with it. And sometimes things were a little bit over, sometimes those things were under, and we try to demonstrate that, but it was not to indicate necessarily one-to-one value judgments about trade-offs. So thank you for that clarification.
I think Lisa had her hand up, then Liz, and then Pip.
I have a bunch of questions, but I just want to ask one right now to frame the discussion that would help me, which is I feel like I still don't understand what our continuing operations budget would be in terms of the % increase and the dollar amount increase year over year if we had made no changes, like if we had done no buyouts, no layoffs, no hiring. What's that number? Just to try to frame these up as a relative thing that would be helpful to me.
That was the 4.99 that we started at.
Okay.
I have a question about that.
Because it didn't make sense to me, I think.
Can I follow up on that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So just on the 4.9, just because there was like is it 4.9 or there was some slight adjustments? Because I know like in the communications we've had back and forth, there was like we got to 4.6 or I just want to
I had gone through and made some operational budget cuts.
Okay, so like
over 100,000. So yeah.
Really, like continuing was more closer to. I mean, it may be pedantic, but it's closer to.
Like if you wanted status quo.
Yeah.
Yes.
4.99.
Okay.
So 4.99 was status quo, and after you did some tinkering before you started changing any positions, it got down to 4.6.
It was like 6.4.
6-ish.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to have that number to work in my brain.
Yeah, I think
better.
if you think about it as like kind of a continuing
Okay.
service budget,
Yes.
it would be around 5.
Thank you.
So.
And I'll save my other questions for later because I think I have
Okay.
a bucket full.
Liz?
So my concern is that we got this budget binder to start, right? And in budget binder, page 11, 12, and 13, there's a list of positions that were requested by the administration as addressing needs. Now, I brought this up because there was this idea at the meeting after we got this, maybe the meeting, I think it was the meeting after we got this, of, 2.9, we're not going to rehire these positions, and here's where we're at, and this gets us where we need to be. And then after that, there was this next step of like, okay, well, actually, we're going to try these other positions. But I had brought up, for example, as an example, I brought up the fact that Don Darrow was requesting 4 paraeducators because of the needs that they were seeing from IEPs within the PEAP program and the students that they were likely having coming into their school. And I think because of that, within this 23-page memo to us and proposals, there was 3 paraeducators in, it looks like, option number 2, and the option number 3 has 3 paraeducators as well. My concern is, though, that we started this whole process with a binder that was saying that we need a special ed case manager for Little Harbor. I think there was a typo on page 9. It says Don Darrow down at the bottom when it should be Little Harbor. We need a case manager for Little Harbor. We need 4 paraeducators for Don Darrow. We need a PMS special ed teacher. There was a request to replace projectors at Portsmouth Middle School. There was a request for a 0.4 of the nurse for PHS and RJLA. There was a request for the CTE program that the most highly requested elective at PHS was the culinary program, and that they're restricting students or turning students away at 72 students, but they could if they had this other position in a community of restaurants in Portsmouth. They could have 144 students in the program and likely maybe not turn people away. That request was out there. I don't see that in the options.
Okay, Liz, can I stop you for a
No,
minute?
Nancy, I have a few more. There's
No,
three
I know,
more,
I know.
Nancy.
We all saw the whole list. What I would like to ask Brian is, what kind of an impact would that have if we added
Can I
all
ask
of
my
those
question,
positions?
Nancy? You can ask your question after, but can I finish my question for
No,
everybody
because
else?
you're just going to keep reading that list.
No,
which
I'm
we have all
not. I'm
seen.
wondering
We
where
have
these
all
positions
seen.
are coming.
Well,
like
they're not
why
all
they're not
in
in
there
the.
because what
You don't even let me
budget
finish, Nancy. It's
impact-
always me you cut off. Is my
No,
concern.
it isn't. No,
Yes,
it
it is,
isn't.
Nancy.
So, I mean, I can, we talked about this when we were initially presenting the budget. So all these other things that folks had asked for, that without the inclusion of those things, we were at 5%. And so the dialogue was looking at those things and feeling like hitting going anything larger than 5% was not realistic. And so we did not include other items. And we did not initially, but we also were not initially eliminating positions either in what we put forward. And I think we had, I think we worked out, if we had put in those other things, our estimate was that we would be pushing 6.5%. Yes. In terms of what it was going to cost. So we made a decision at that time.
Can I ask my question? My question is, how are you going to address these needs? We didn't have music specialists. Our kids aren't learning percussion. So how are we addressing that need? How are we addressing the fact that we have students that want to do a culinary program and we're turning kids away? How do we address the fact that we need 4 paraeducators at Dondero and not 3, and we need a special ed position at Little Harbor? Like, I'd like to know how we are going to address those things if they are not in the budget.
So we are going to. So with all those things, when people come to us, so before people even go to us, they're going to principals. Department heads are going to principals, and they're saying, "Hey, here are all the things that I could need in order to advance the mission and vision of the school district." And principals are in a position where they make choices about what they're going to advance to us for requests. We're in the same boat where we are trying to. What I want in terms of what I'm going to advance to you is what I think I try to balance what is going to move us forward towards that mission and vision, and what I think is actually potentially going to come to fruition when we're balancing out our need to be effective stewards of the taxpayers' dollars.
So are students not going to be learning percussion next year?
So we're going to have to find another way that's not hiring a person to do that. So it might be a stipend for somebody.
So are we including that in the budget?
We have stipends within the music department that we could reallocate. So
How are we addressing the fact that we might need 4 paras instead of 3?
So the 4 paras to 3 the initial proposal came out of the principal at Dondero School, looking at what she anticipated was going to come to her building. From the time that we originally created this binder, we had additional conversations where we felt the need had shifted to 3. So the request from the time in which we originally put together the binder till now adjusted.
What about the need at Little Harbor for a special ed case manager?
So our decision was that, in line with the conversations we've been having about the desire to have more in-house programming that would limit the number of students that we push out of district, what we wanted to do is take that additional need for a case manager. If we were going to do that, we wanted somebody who was going to focus on intensive needs, and then we saw a cluster that was potentially moving to Dondero, which was reflective of what was happening with the paraeducators, and also our ability to house a program at Dondero that could be a pilot for us doing more intensive service in-house that would save us from sending kids out of district. So that was a combination of items that were connected to those proposals.
So we're not doing that now?
It's a shift.
So the shift is to take that request for an additional case manager. Instead of putting the case manager at Little Harbor, we would put that additional special educator at Dondero, because we think that's where we would house a more intensive program that would start this process of trying to be more.
I don't see that in any of the budget proposals, though.
So
Any of the budget proposals?
I don't know, we've discussed, I'm trying to think of when we So there's been an evolve. So we don't have at the moment, as we've gone, we have not changed the binder from where we were, but we have had presentations over the course of the time while we've been talking, where we've adjusted some of what we've asked for. And those requests, so what you see in the 23-page document reflects ongoing conversations that have occurred with principals and directors from where we originally were to some tweaking and evolving, because some of those requests were made in November. And so now, as we're moving into February and March, we've been able to tweak and adjust some of those requests.
So is that within the option 2 request to have the support so that maybe we can keep kids in district? Is that in option 2 and maybe save later on out of district tuition? Is that option 2? Is
So-
that going to provide the special ed position that you're looking for to do this intensive needs elementary? Is
So
that what you're?
So 2 includes everything.
Page
all-
14.
everything.
You're looking at page 14?
Page 12.
And so 12. So the second option is the whole scale trade outs of things. The third option is the kind of, we'll call it the tweener. And that is where we're looking at kind of the targeted, kind of more targeted stuff. So inside of that, what you'll see is 2 things. If you look at page 18, so as we had to prioritize amongst all those trade outs, and we would only look at particular things, the things we prioritized were around intensive needs special education and the ability to have additional in-house capacity, which would keep more kids in district, also be able to do it at a cheaper rate, but more importantly, could provide the services in-house. Those are those first 2 proposals on that particular page. The other things we prioritized were also connected to special education and social emotional learning.
And just to be clear for the taxpayer, though, so adding these positions
Yep.
and having these positions be in-house could potentially save us, would it be fair to say, $1 million in out-of-district tuition?
Hard. But let's say, it depends on the nature of the disability and what the placement is that we would do out of district. But when you build, and I think we've heard this in citizen comments a couple times, and I think it's accurate. When you build in-house programming, a single student, depending on the disability, might cost us a couple $100,000 between tuition and transportation. What if, and I think that was kind of one of the questions tonight, what if you reallocated the money that was around those students to in-house programming? How robust an option could you create where students wouldn't have to leave their own community?
So I motion to approve a budget with a 3.97 increase.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Let's have a discussion.
I think you had called on me next. Yeah.
Oh,
Are you
okay.
done for the moment?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks.
Okay.
Well, first I want to thank you, Zach, for answering Liz's questions, because I don't know about her, but I don't feel comfortable voting on a budget where I still have a lot of questions and they're not allowed to be answered. So I really appreciate that, and I hope that we will be able to continue doing that tonight. I share some of her frustration in terms of the process, and I know we've all expressed that this wasn't the best process, but I think what is very confusing to me is that we were given the binder with the information, with the requests, and then given a budget that didn't include any of those, then told that we couldn't even talk about those anymore, but then we were given a budget that included other positions that weren't those, and so I'm confused about where these new things have come from, and also how you decided, even though we said we couldn't talk about those anymore, we then brought them back in to the budget.
So I want to be clear about not allowed to talk about
yes,
things.
please
I don't know
clarify
if
that.
I would say we. So I'd just say I'll speak for our team in that when the 2.9%, and this is, I think we started to have this conversation, and we've had this conversation in a couple of different ways. So when the 2.9% number came down from the city as guidance, we started working to try to respond to that, because our concern was that if we went through this process and we voted a 4.99 budget, we got to this date where we had to start giving people contracts, that we would be in an in-between zone where we're out. We might have to pink slip a whole bunch of people saying we don't know if we can give you a contract or not. So we started from the position of, okay, what is a 2.9? If we had to do that, what does it look like? And how would we approach that, and how would we design something around that number? Because our conversation is that we would have the very strong support of the manager and the manager's staff in that proposal, which would highly increase the likelihood that what we propose would actually go into operation, so that we would be done when, we would be done on whenever we're finished. Let's say it was the beginning of March or whatever, that we would be done as we were thinking about when we thought this might wrap up. We might be done in the beginning of March and then be able to operationalize most of what we had proposed, because we had faith that there might be a little buffer in there where we might lose some stuff at the city manager and city council level, but that we did not want to. We were afraid of a situation in terms of what it would do to operations if we went in at 4.99 and just said, okay, city, what are you going to do, anticipating that the most likely outcome would be based on previous situations, but the manager would just say, well, I'm going ahead with 2.9. This is what it is. And what's your rationale, Zach, for the things that you would include as a 2.9% increase? There was some discussion as to whether or not we should be picking up, even in our budget, whether or not we should be picking up the stuff that is now in the contingency from the 5 different unions that we're negotiating with, that ultimately was decided that the city would pick it up. And we've had the conversation that has been the tradition in the past, so it's not necessarily a huge give from the city, but it was not. But other departments in the city are picking up their contingency, and we're not. So anyway, so the long and short of it, as we were going through that process in a very condensed timeline, was we were prioritizing the being able to operationalize the most robust approach that we thought we could get, because the concern was if we go into this period of time in April and May, and we're basically on hold operationally because we've got a whole bunch of things that are frozen because we don't know what the city process is going to lead to, that could lead to a ripple effect of negative outcomes across our ability to deliver services effectively in the 25-26 school year. So we made those adjustments. We came back, and then as the board, in one of the conversations that we had most recently, I think there was a big, very clear expression from the board that there was frustration that we had taken that approach, and that we should not be reducing to the extent to which we're reducing some of the folks and some of the services that potentially were in the district. So then we came back with, okay, great. If we were going to spend up to the level that it felt like you collectively wanted us to spend to, we would not just replace all the things where people retired, but we would do, here are the things we would do and how we would reallocate things that we think best move the district forward towards the goals that are part of the strategic plan. And so that's how these 3 proposals came to be. And I think one of the things that will be good for us in the future, and we've all had this conversation about kind of the process as a whole, that type of city guidance is really, if we're going to work strategically and inclusively with you, with staff, with all those things, that type of city guidance really needs to come in September. And then that puts us in a position over the course of multiple months as we're building our budget over multiple months in an inclusive way with department heads, with principals, trying to weigh all these things, that then we can be really thoughtful about the types of tough choices that we're going to have to make. And so the reduced timeline put us in a really tough spot in order to do that and do it well in a way that felt like it was more inclusive of you and staff.
Yeah, I think that was my concern, is that it feels like the timeline is really difficult because we just got this today, this last thing that we're voting on, and that's not enough time to do due diligence to approve something.
We got
I'm sorry, the latest memo we got today.
But yes, we
I
have
understand.
If I
had
could
this.
say something, I know
Yeah.
Zach reached out to you and you weren't able to connect with him.
That's all.
But we haven't had time on record to do this either. We haven't had time to go
So I would
through
just say
all
this.
the different items
I
as well.
do not believe Zach
with the
has reached out to me.
presentations.
That's
I'm not.
not
That's
information I have. So
I-
I
And
don't
that
know
wouldn't be
how-
appropriate either. She has the right to talk on record.
What I was referring to when I said we weren't allowed to talk, we had a straw poll of our board, and we eliminated the ability to discuss the things that Liz and I had questions about regarding those requests from the principals. So that's what I was
Understood.
referring to. It wasn't about you, it
Okay.
was the board.
I'm not trying to shut down conversation.
And, yeah, and I'm
So-
not sure why you're bringing that up, Nancy, that Zach tried to reach out to me.
So
I knew, well, he reached out
So-
to several board
so I-
members and I thought he reached out to you.
I just feel like we need to.
Here's what I think is really.
All right, let's
I want to
move
make sure
on.
it's really. I want to defend staff because the only thing I'm worried about is the way in which it's being framed right now. It makes it sound like staff was sitting around not doing anything until the last minute and they sprung it on you.
Mm-hmm.
And really, this has been responding to the city, to your requests, to the conversations we've been having. And as we've been going, we've been dropping lots of other things
Yep.
that we normally would be doing to have people really put intensive time
Yep.
into this. And that's people at this table, it's people who are sitting in chairs out
Yep.
there. This has been a lot of work, and this has absolutely not been we've been sitting around till the last minute to spring something on you. So I really hope that that's not the narrative, because I don't think it's a fair narrative. So I just wanted to say that.
Okay, I appreciate that. My concern is that it hasn't felt strategic in terms of here are our goals, here's how we're going to achieve them. Instead, it's felt like we're just playing catch up and we're reacting, but we're not looking at our strategic plan and saying these are all the things that we really want. How can we make those work in our budget? And maybe that's what you're saying you're doing behind the scenes, but for us as a board, it hasn't felt that way. So I hope that's what's been
We're a
going on.
community. I think we have to be clear to the community
So I was just going to
too.
say that for me, which is interesting, I feel like the 23-page document is trying to speak to that. Is we're trying to say, here's the spot that we're in with a reduced timeline, and in that reduced timeline and with these challenging variables, we're still trying to articulate, here's what we think is the best strategic action in this moment with the resources we have available to us, and here's the rationale based on contributions from many staff around why we think these investments are the right investments at this time. So we're always open to more dialogue and presenting it in different ways, but I think this was our attempt to do exactly that.
And if I could say, our meeting a week ago, what was our last meeting? This was the roots of what our options were going to be.
We didn't talk
knew
about them
2 weeks
there.
ago that we were at a 2.9, that we were at a 3.6 or 3.4, whatever it was, and then a 3.9. We've had this for a couple of
We
weeks.
haven't been able to talk about it, Nancy. We had a presentation by the principal about the curriculum coordinator position
All right,
and how that was
Liz,
going to
I didn't
expand. We
recognize
could have
you.
used our
Please
time a little
quiet.
better,
Who would
I
like
think.
to speak? Lisa.
So I guess I'm feeling like none of these three options, quite honestly, are that appealing to me. And I know that we have to choose sort of the least frustrating option and put it forward. I feel like most years, every year I can remember, the city council has pretty consistently given us guidance that is somewhat below our continuing operations budget, because they have a fiscal responsibility to do their best to rein in the amount of increase in spending across the whole city. That is their role. So I am not 100% sure what the process was this year, where the guidance from the council to cap the budget at 2.9% was particularly more stern or more firm than in previous years, where we've heard zero, quite frankly. So I feel like what I wish could have happened is that these three options that we are contemplating this evening, we had in January, because quite honestly, I would have wanted the opportunity to request that one of our budget workshops be devoted, for example, to how do we plan to overhaul our counseling program, since that seems to be a big part of the budget options being put forward. Or to be able to request a budget hearing on how are we creating this new program in CTE around design and engineering and digital media, because it feels like, I'm sure that you've had the opportunity to discuss these with your administrative team, but at the board level, we haven't had the opportunity to understand what these things are that we are voting for. And I'm not saying it's malicious, but it feels unfortunate. And I don't quite know where to go with budgets. I think 2.9 would be really devastating to kids and cut a lot of services that bring a lot of quality and value to our schools. But then both of the other options include new programs and new positions that I don't think that we've fully discussed. And I don't love being in that position. So I don't even know if I have a question, but I just feel like I need to voice that. It feels very late in the process to be making really big financial choices without what I wish was more information.
Does anyone else have anything they would like to say?
Can we discuss the option 2 that's on, we can discuss
Alright,
the motion that's
let
on the
Carrie-
table,
let
though?
Carrie
I understand,
speak.
but I wanted to expand Lisa's question.
All right,
and
let
discuss the
Carrie
option
speak
that's on the
first. Maybe
table.
Carrie has an answer.
I think Nathan had his hand up too. I think, I guess I feel a little like we're going through the same cycle again, where from my perspective, we've asked questions. We've asked a lot of questions. We've gotten really, really detailed answers and rationales in the 3 options document that gives us more detail than I've ever gotten as a board member in my 4th year on why we're having these things, why all of these changes are here, both in tables and in narrative. So I'm not sure. I feel like my questions have been answered. The rationale behind it makes sense. Yes, the time frame is tight with contracts and whatnot, but I mean, I'm comfortable with the 3.9 something budget. I guess the reflection I have about the process and the rush and the timeline is more so that we didn't discuss the budget when we were asked not to. So I think my regret is that we didn't have a meeting in December to talk about how we were going to talk about the budget, and that we didn't start right off in January and we waited for guidance, which was a request from the council and administration, but I think that is really hurting us now. So I would just recommend going forward to do that. With all that said, I have a really small or a very small question around, the option 1 does not provide does not add the 3 para educators that options 2 and 3 do. But given that's sort of a level of service that would be required for students that we know are transitioning to Dondero, I mean, what would that practically mean? You would still need to hire 3 paras.
All depends on, it's an anticipatory, it's a good question. It's an anticipatory move, hiring paras, because we're looking, so we don't know, there's not a guarantee that exactly what's happening at that level is going to translate already into 3 paras at the next level. We still have meetings to have, we have things to do. We're anticipating that cost is going to be there based on the student need. And so we're building it into the budget based on that anticipation. And I think it's actually a very good way to approach it. Now, what happens whenever we're in a situation where in the course of an operating year, a IEP team sits together and comes to the conclusion that based on the student's disability, the way in which we're going to bridge bridge them to their education is we're going to provide some type of service. It might be a para, it might be a contracted service, it might be who knows what, but it has a cost that we didn't budget for. So very often then we have to go and look and figure out, all right, here's where we are in this year. What can we get away with that we planned in our initial plan and pitch to you? What can we take off the table now in order to pay for these things that we have to do, we're legally obligated to do if we've gone through that process? And then what other things are now more discretionary as a result, and are we going to pull off the table? And that's how it goes. Those can be in our district, we're big enough to absorb some of those situations. More in small districts, this can completely destroy their budget. In 2 kids, and what comes out of an IEP conversation, and what the conclusions are from a team about what that student needs in order to properly have a free and appropriate public education, can really have an outsized impact on their entire budget. we have the ability most of the time to absorb some of that, but it always comes with losing other things that we plan to do.
And
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, just I think too, part of the, and this has also come up a lot, is the desire for sort of larger changes has been, so for instance, a K through 12 foreign language program has been talked about consistently, but it actually requires the type of cuts and maneuvering and changes that was forced in this budget.
True.
So I guess as part of it, and I think next year, like those sort of strategic initiatives need to be kind of presented as options in September to get to this point. And now that we have the strategic plan in place, I'm hopeful that some of those things can be realigned, because I think a symptom of not feeling like there was opportunity to, I think the not feeling like there was opportunity to discuss the line items is a symptom of having things brought to the table and then not discussed. So I am hopeful that we're in a process point where it'll get better.
And I think one of the things that will be interesting and challenging culturally, I think, based on my short-term understanding of the history of the district, is that this has not been a place that has done a lot of layoffs, and it's also a place we're having a conversation about at what point are the expenditures that we're making in the school system beyond what the taxpayer can afford, right? And so what would be interesting is if we get into that conversation in the fall, and we're saying the way in which we're going to approach strategic goals can't exclusively be just adding, that we have to do trading. That trading conversation that we would have much earlier out would involve an ongoing conversation that involves the idea of letting some people go in order to do other things. And my understanding of the intermediate term history of the school district is that has not culturally been a conversation that has happened here. I think those are hard conversations we need to have if we want to advance some of the things we're talking about strategically. But I think that's going to be a challenging dialogue for us in the fall. I think we should have those. So I agree.
Okay, we have Nathan first, then Brian, then Byron, then Tish.
I was just
Do you
telling you to
wanna go?
call on Tish.
Oh,
Sorry.
you're telling me about Tish.
Fancy
Okay,
sign.
and Liz.
Sorry.
Okay, we'll start with Nathan.
All right, I wanted to jump in here. First, I've been on here long enough to know that we have a tendency to jump into the topic of process. And I think that hyper-focusing on that right now, with what we've been spending in the past 20 minutes doing, is really like not adding much to what we're trying to do tonight, if I'm being quite honest. And we're trying to approve a budget, talking about what we could have done. Like, can we please just try and focus on this here? And also the notion, I heard in public comment and public people that I've talked to, that we were just cutting classroom teachers. To put that out there tonight in this conversation, the 2.9 was put together through the administration and the people in the schools thinking that could facilitate next year. And I vocalized my support for the 2.9. Requirements are a different story. If we are required to provide 3 paraeducators, we need to add it in, quite obviously. But putting that aside, these requests here were in last year's budget binder. They were in the year before that, my freshman year. These requests are yearly. I think some of them we definitely should add in, and some of them we just can't fit. And this idea that we have these requests and they need this, they need this, they need this, when it's not necessarily a need. Culinary has always been something that you get in if you're lucky, because a lot of kids want to take the intro to culinary class. The 2-year course is a different story. That's for people who actually want to become chefs. And there's also other requests there that I could talk about, but I won't. So I want to try and refocus this conversation to truly what we're trying to accomplish tonight. And my support for the requests in addition to the 2.0.
Thank you, Nathan.
Excellent.
Next we have Brian.
School board.
So
That's right, run for school board.
I think, well, a couple things. I want a clarification because I think it was made tonight, and I just want to make sure that everybody hears it from you. The process, like, say we vote 3.97%. City manager will not bring that necessarily to the council to vote, right?
I mean, I can't speak for the manager in this exact moment. I would say, yes, I would anticipate.
She can pick what she wants.
I would anticipate that it's going to be 2.9.
Okay.
And that's what, and there'll be some, and we'll be given some kind of ability to kind of shuffle what we think the 2.9 would be. That most likely would reflect what we gave you in option 1, because we've already done work to try to get to, here's a scenario for that. And then if we then in turn said, well, we want those things and more, then what would happen is in the introduction page of the school portion of the proposal, there'd be an introductory statement which would include, here's the manager's proposal, and here are the things that are not in the manager's proposal that were part of the formal recommendation from the school board, and here's why the school board felt that those things were necessary as part of that process. And then we'll be in the position of being in the, and charter departments have to kind of figure out how to navigate this, where we'll be part of a process that is first and foremost designed to talk about the manager's proposal. And then we'll be speaking to those things, which she's already included, and then we'd be, speaking to other things as well, in terms of what we had collectively come to that may not reflect what the manager includes in her proposal. And that all, that's all, they're building their book right now. And so then the city council, I think the anticipated date is April 28th. The city council will be the first time they're receiving their books and starting their conversation. And with usually them finishing the first week in June. And so some of this, if we were to do, just to take that a step further, if we were to say we want to go for the 3.9, I think strategically we would be thinking about, in terms of those additional positions, we would be doing some kind of hedging and waiting to hire some of those spots until we saw further along where we thought the process was, and at what point we received either the conclusion of the process altogether, or we felt like we could read the tea leaves to maybe do one or two while we're waiting for the rest to become clear. That's kind of as far as I see it, that's the path forward. That would be the path forward. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, because I think some people think, we vote and then that's the number that goes to the council, and it's not. So I just want to make sure that, it's up to her, really, what she presents.
But we still have the opportunity to advocate for the things that we feel are important, and there's opportunities within the book for us
But it's not in her
to be
bucket.
present in that.
Yeah, and as far as, I'm sorry, I'm going to talk about process. Apologize for saying. Darn it. But I did like the conversation that Carrie and you brought up, because fundamentally, if we're talking about strategic planning, and we're looking at enrollment either saying even or kind of declining, the idea is you cannot just keep adding FTEs on top of the pile. Like, it doesn't make as much sense, and a business would not do that either. But it is a hard change or a hard way to look at it. But if you're not growing, but you want to make those strategic moves, you have to figure out what are the trade-offs. And I'm glad that you brought that up, and I hope, in our retreat we discuss those things, because I think it's a hard conversation. But also, if we are trying to steer the ship towards these pillars of what we say we're going to do, that you do look at it holistically like that, because I think that's a great way to do it. And honestly, I think all of you guys have put a lot of thought into the 3.971 in terms of how they are congruent with those pillars and what they fulfill the needs. I wish it was a little bit more money, but also I'm not an educator, and I'm also not a professional manager of schools either. So, you guys know best in a lot of ways, but I really think this is your best this is one of your best efforts to say, this is really strategically aligned, but also I'm trying to respect the taxpayer at the same time, instead of going for 5 or piling the heap higher with FTEs. I think it's a good compromise. I don't love it, but I think it is a good compromise in terms of supporting the community and not just keep putting up our budget higher, but we want to do right by the kids, especially if we say our strategic plan is to do X, Y, and Z, and put our resources behind that, what we're going to do. So that's why I'm supporting the 3.9. I guess I know I'd love it to go on a little bit differently, and I know there's lots of things, but I think we've all learned some things, which I hope we'll take back and do a little bit differently.
Thank you, Brian. Byron.
Thank you, Nancy. Yeah, I agree with a lot with what Brian said there. I'm also going to talk about process. Sorry, Nathan.
Good try.
Not your night, Nathan.
Nice speech.
Yeah. So there's three things. So, council, if you're listening.
And some of them are.
Some of them are, yeah. There's three things that I think on the process side really needs to change, and we talked about a couple of them. One is the council guidance in September, and then us having a board discussion earlier based on that guidance. Both of those things need to happen, and that enables the type of line item strategic discussion that we're talking about, right? If we're going to have a strategic discussion about line items, we need to have those two things happen first. So I think a lot of the discord and friction we're experiencing here tonight are not a result of administrative actions that have taken place. It's downstream of that reality. And this year was even more bizarre because if I have my sequence correct, we got the binder with 4.9, then the guidance was set. So we were set with capitulating and negotiating against ourselves what the binder had arrived in. So that sequence that was doubly strange. Mm-hmm. So those first two things, the council guidance in September and us just talking about it earlier. And there's another thing, which is the teacher contracts, which is April. And so the third thing that this is also sort of needs to happen, can't happen at this level, needs to happen at the state level, is that the budget needs to happen before the teacher contracts go out. Because the leverage that you're talking about, Zach, when you're talking about, we want to make sure we're in the city manager's budget. Because if we're not in the city manager's budget, we're going to have to potentially pick slip teachers, is because of that dynamic.
That's correct.
Right?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
So that's the third thing that needs to change on the process side. What we can do at this level is as early as possible. Board, I agree with Carrie on the fidelity of the strategic reorganization of positions. I think that was really, really helpful. Really haven't had a great, it would be great to have more space around that and more, so I'll say that. And then as for the board, I think this is something, if we're going to go with 3.9, and so I definitely support that. I think every penny, every dollar we put into public education, the ROI is there. It's fungible, and there's a lot of line items we can talk about, but ultimately we need to rely on our administration to spend those dollars the best way for our students, and I think we have a great administration that can do that, and so I'm happy to advocate for the most funding we can because I think it's worth it. So I'm absolutely there on the 3.9. So I'll say that, and then that's where I'm at.
3.97.
2.97. Thank you.
Okay. Thank
We got
you,
Tish
Byron.
on.
Yep, we have Tish and then we have Liz, and then I would like to speak if that's okay.
Okay, thank
Cheers.
you. First, I want to say everybody has excellent, valid points, and I'm jumping on that, saying I too am supporting the 3.97%. I think that, and one of the reasons why is we started out with a 4.9 budget that gave us status quo, and we were asked to move back, and the administration did a fantastic job with what they had of giving us options. It's hard no matter what gets cut or what gets decided, but what was decided was offering teachers an early buyout, which some teachers took, which saved us some money. And then other line items were looked and things were brought down. But ultimately, we're talking about our kids, we're talking about our students. And what's best for the students is ultimately what's best for the community as a whole. That I can't vote for anything less than 3.97 because I think it would be a disservice to the students and as a community as a whole. But I do agree, I think the conversation for budgeting and certain items, certain positions, that discussion needs to start prior, so we aren't in crunch time. I would love to see this discussion start in November and December. I know that that's when the administration does. They start that in the fall. But share some of what you're talking about with us, so we have some of that inner information as you're working on it, because many minds work so much better together. But I'm in full support of the 3.97. And thank you for the hard work.
Thank you, Tish. Next, we have Liz.
Yes, thanks. I appreciate Nate wanted to talk about the budget, so I really want to drill down a little bit more into that. I just want to first say, you know, our responsibility as a board is to the students of our community. They're the next generation in a crazy world right now, and I think anything our community can do to support our children's education, especially with defunding education at this time, is extremely important, and that's our number one role. I understand we also have an obligation not only to our children's citizens, but to our citizens, our taxpayers, and the rest of the community. And so I think because of that obligation, I think we need to be very clear about what's in our budget binder, what our budget is, why we're making the moves that we're making, and so that the whole board understands, to Pip's points here too, that the whole board understands if we're changing a yoga and computer teacher and we're substituting that for 3 paraeducators, why that's decisions made, or what this new kids program is. And, you know, I appreciate the 23-page memo. It's a great explainer, but some of these things, it would be good to have more of a conversation, not only for the board, but for the community. And so I do think that there's been a lot of confusion, and sorry to speak to process, but I do think there's been a lot of confusion, and I want the community to understand that in our budget binder, there's a lot of things that have been changed around because of the cost centers moving, certain funding centers that were moving around. And so I would hope in the future that maybe we could highlight that a little more. I think it might have been Esther that pointed out a comment, and I think we had spoke to it too, about, you know, maybe adding a little notes area where you could say that, for example, in the text section, I think there's an extra $70,000 that was added in. We're not seeing that on the 23-pager of added costs that we have for our budget. So having those notes of where we are adding things in onto the budget would be helpful. I think it was helpful to have conversations with, you know, Ken Lynchy came in, we talked about all the different cost centers in his area, but my concern though is that as a board in this process, we weren't able to go through every single section and cover all the cost centers to really understand. I think it's a little much to be asking us to meet with Zach outside of the school board meeting to kind of go through these things. I think Zach answered some questions because community members had gotten up and asked questions that we as a board weren't even able to kind of drill down into. I think a lot of them we did when we were talking to Tech or we were talking to Ken, but I think there's other cost centers that, you know, there may be still questions about. You know, and so I appreciate wanting the questions in advance, but I think those things are really important in the process and to really explain it to the community. And that's why I kind of asked for a 1-pager or 2-pager of position costs versus the 23-pager, because I do think it gives a better presentation to the community of, especially when you move forward and you have to go to city council and you're saying we want 3.97, and if you force us into 2.9, this is what we're losing, or this is what we're requesting to gain. And so my concern is that it's not like maybe my suggestion would be, as you move forward to the city council, that's the type of presentation you give, because I think in the past that has been really helpful to the board to be able to see individual positions, and then the board ends up voting on individual positions. Maybe all of us don't want a maintenance supervisor. I think that's come up, but I think it's been a request that's been over and over and over again, and based on our maintenance needs, I do think that we need it, and I would ask that move forward in the budget. I do want to speak to the architecture bit. I do appreciate a student coming in tonight and speaking to that and making a great presentation. I mean, obviously, we're doing great work in our schools with students like this, and so that was my concern that I raised initially when architecture went away, as what are we doing with the students that have been in the program, and what are we offering them? So obviously, I want to ensure that there's a capstone or some sort of opportunity. My concern, though, is that when you're building in this new position of the design engineering, and you click the link to go over to the design engineering program, which is on page number 15. When you click that link, and it gives us, now it says, here, I have it right here. It doesn't bring up architecture. Architecture is not part of it. I think there's some CAD and there's some other aspects of it that are built in that would address architecture as well, but I'm a little bit concerned with totally eliminating that. I do appreciate the fact that we are having this position, but I guess I'm hoping for the community and for us and for the city council, if we're voting on a 3.97 budget, and that's what the motion is on the table, I'm hoping that you can briefly run through what the items are that we're requesting on record. What are we requesting? I know it's in our 23 pager, but what this looks like, a brief explanation on each one. I think we've already talked about the paraeducators. We've talked about the intensive needs elementary, but if you could talk a little more about the design engineer, the expansion of the nurse, the director of counseling, the kids teacher, why we're going from counselor to social worker, as somebody mentioned that it's a little bit contradictory, and getting rid of a classroom teacher for a maintenance position, and why there was a decision to get rid of the classroom teacher. I understand it's in your memo, but I'm hoping that we could speak to that as we go before we vote for this.
I'm trying to figure out how to do something that's in between the slide deck I gave you last time, which was trying to be a summary of this, and then this, and then trying to do it as a one-pager.
Well, I think it would be, I guess as a one-pager, it would be like, these are the it would just probably be the graph that you have on section 12 that shows that we're actually, in this proposal, we are making a reduction of, it looks like almost one FTE, $85,000. We're making an $85,000 reduction in what our budget would be moving forward.
So in each, I would say just broadly, and Brian was speaking to this earlier, I would say in each of in 2 and 3, I think what's important is to not look at those as individual lines, but look at it as a kind of package deal. So they're not one-to-one exchanges. They're trying to reallocate basically it was looking at, the lesser of the two, the more targeted, which I refer to as kind of targeted, we're looking at what if amongst the things that were articulated from principals and directors, if we could only have a portion of that as we try to kind of work through the process, here would be the things we would put the highest priority on. And the highest priority was connected to what were most essential in terms of the movement of strategic goals, and where did we see the biggest strain on the system? And our biggest strain tends to be not in terms of, at the moment, not in terms of class sizes in regular classrooms, but in terms of the amount of services needed for students, both in special education and connected to social emotional needs. So when we option the more targeted of the two, really puts that front and center. And says that's if we had to choose, that's where we're putting that's where we'd put our resources that are freed up as a result of some of the reductions we have from people taking a buyout. In the second memo, the one that came out today, that was in this packet, we're also acknowledging that class size is not an issue in this district at the moment. We are very lucky to have been well-funded, but when we talk about a reduction of the classroom teacher, I think we have the statistics in there. We go from 16 students per class down to 15 and a half by the reduction of one classroom teacher. 15 students in a class on average is a really good average to have in terms of what's happening in those elementary school classrooms. We gave you data on what's happening at the high school in terms of, we had some questions about our classes under enrolled. So we gave you some statistical information about that. I would say we want to do a good job of maintaining staffing levels, but do we think we can absorb some of those positions and have it not make a deep impact on what we're offering to students and what the sizes of classes are going to be? Yes, we think we can, and we'd rather take that money and then reallocate it towards other things that we don't have at the moment where we see need. So that's what we've tried to build through the three options and indicate our best analysis about what we can afford to lose and then how we'd reallocate those funds in the pursuit of the overall strength of the school district as a whole through the lens of the strategic plan.
Okay. If I could just speak for a minute. First, I want to apologize. I kind of lost it there. Pip, I'm sorry. I thought Zach had tried to contact you, and I guess that wasn't true. But I guess I get frustrated because 2 weeks ago on March 11th, we got this proposal. We got the 2.9, the 3.4, the 3.9. So we've had 2 weeks to look at this. And I think Zach is open. I remember in the beginning when Zach first came, remember we said, please don't call the superintendent. We don't want to barrage him with questions from board members. But when we get his weekly report now every Friday, he says, please contact me if you need more information. So I think that whole climate has kind of changed. You see it on the weekly report that we get from Zach. So from March 11th, when we had our last meeting till now, if you really had some questions, it would have been good to contact him. I think he would have definitely talked to you. So I think that part of our operation of our board has changed in the past couple of years since Zach has been here. So please feel comfortable calling Zach when you want as a board member to ask him any kind of a question. And if you remember, on March 11th, we went through every single night from March 11th to the 25th and said, can we meet this night? Can we meet? No, nobody. We had to accommodate everybody. And there wasn't a free night between March 11th and tonight when we could meet again. So, we're definitely married to our schedule, our school board meeting schedule, but, it's too bad that maybe we couldn't have met one night in between, but it just didn't happen. The other thing I'd like to say is let's make a budget committee. We can make the proposal at our next meeting we could have a budget committee, and we could start meeting in September. And we could start thinking meet with the administrators to talk about what is our budget going to look like. It's tough because, and I think we should do that, but some of you may know, I got an email in February from our city manager, and it was a pretty harsh email. And it talked about how there was a rumor around City Hall that the school board was coming in at 5%. And she said, what are you doing? What are you guys doing? You don't even have the figure from the city council yet. And we hadn't even gotten our budget book yet. I said, what are you talking about? We don't even have our budget book yet. So we do have to be careful in that we have to work within the confines of the city council and the city manager. So I was shocked when I got that email. I mean, I've been around for a while. I never remember that kind of rhetoric happening. But, so I think an idea of a budget committee, Byron, I think whoever said it first, I think that's a great idea, and we'll do that. We can form it. Kerry?
We did form a finance committee, right?
That seems like a place where it could live.
Yeah, that could live in the finance committee. Okay, that could definitely live in the finance committee. That's right, I forgot about that. So anyway.
Byron and I can work together anymore.
Oh, I know.
No, don't.
We're going to start talking about you two. Anyway, I'm in favor of the 3.9. I would have been in favor of
3.97.
Okay, 3.97. I'm in favor of that. I think, I wish it was higher, like others have said. I think it satisfies the needs of our students. And I also think, you know, we have a superintendent, we have an assistant superintendent, we have excellent staff out there. You know, we got to give them some leeway. You know, if we're looking at this, like, let's say next year, and when the numbers come up, there's 2,000 kids signed up for math. Well, he might have to reallocate how the math department's going to look at Portsmouth High School. Or if you get 10 PEEP kids that all need paraprofessionals, I'm dramatizing my numbers here.
We adjust.
You know, you adjust. And that's his decision with his staff, with his fabulous staff that we have here in Portsmouth. So I think we need to maybe not nitpick quite so much and think, let our superintendent and his staff do their jobs. You know, we are the board, and we need to be aware of some of these changes. And you could inform us, which you do, I think. But, you know, we have to remember, we have a superintendent, you know. It's kind of like, you know, I don't know. Well, I think we should let Zach and his staff do their job. I think that's all I have to say.
I have one quick question, Nancy.
Yes.
So in the consensus, which is a 3.9,
Seven.
The design engineering teacher, what does that look like with architecture? Because I think that Kara had some great points in her public comment, but it also is just is it continuing? Do you have upperclassmen who are able to finish? What does that position look like, and what are its duties? And you're here, two high school administrators are here. Like, is there a clear answer on that?
Steve, can you speak to that?
Yeah, should I grab a mic or shout? Yeah. So, as has been discussed, these options were developed kind of as we were getting new numbers and new information. And so if you click on that link and see that 4-year scope and sequence for design engineering, that was created prior to the situation we're in. So that's why architecture is missing from that language. It wasn't done this was done before, meaning years ago, to develop a program that would sit in between actually computer science, science engineering, and the visual arts. Eric and I have talked about a design engineering position. So moving forward, if the 3.9 were to actually come into play, and if that position was actually being invested in, architecture would absolutely have a space in that design, in that 4-year sequence. But it's not there now because it wasn't designed with that in mind. We didn't know there was not going to, there would be a retirement. So that's my answer to that.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Liz.
Just briefly, Nancy, I appreciate Zach wanting to take questions from the board, but as a board member who wants to hear what other people are asking, and I want the community to hear what people are asking, and I want the community to hear Zach's explanation to some of these things, I don't think it's appropriate for us to be individually contacting Zach to be asking these questions. I think that's why originally we had this whole hierarchy when Zach came in about how we weren't going to do that. So I do appreciate, like, hey, sending an email, like I've given Zach a heads up, like, hey, I'm going to make an issue with this, and, if you could please address it. But I made the issue in a public meeting so that the public could hear and the public could have answers. And so that is my concern with some of the presentation. Communication has been an issue ongoing with the school department. And so I do appreciate, and I think I've brought up too, like I do appreciate how complex it's efficient in some ways, but I do appreciate how complex our agendas are when they have links to other things. Our budgets are living within the agenda. Memos are living within the agenda. So unless I'm saving certain things from the agenda previously, or they're being brought up back on the agenda and there's a link here and there, certain things I think community members are getting lost in with, especially when we had a presentation from the tech department. They explained a lot of the sections of the budget that kind of came up in public comment. And so having those, just to think about the communication, but also what is the public seeing? What is and that I do feel from a process standpoint that I don't think it's appropriate to be contacting Zach separately. I think it needs to be presented, asked, and we should give the opportunity and the space in a public meeting to be able to ask our questions and not be interrupted or have the discussion push forward, or we really need to address these issues. So I do appreciate that sentiment. I do appreciate everybody's support for the budget. I realize we're in a hard position, and I realize that the city manager may come back and say push it down to 2.9. I would hope that there'd be a conversation with the board about what positions we'd be keeping or getting rid of if we had to get forced into that position. But I really think that we need to highlight the fact that we are cutting in this budget, in offering that. I wish we could cut more, and maybe that's what we're offering in having this committee exploring the budget. But I also want to emphasize the fact that the hope would be to bring more kids in-house and have less out-of-district placements. So for next year, it'd be really good to see if we've kind of met that goal and maybe made those reductions in our budget overall to save the taxpayers some money. So I appreciate that. And I also appreciate the fact that there's going to be a supplemental budget request. And I think that's a lot to ask of the city. And so I think if we can really get those out-of-district placements down, that could maybe justify when we do come back for a supplemental budget request later on, maybe we could make some justification for next year.
Thank you, Liz. Kerry.
This is sort of all coming together with me about the architecture and design engineering program. That, if I'm correct in what I'm hearing, that the design engineering was really going to be an additional offering that proposes an additional offering that we've now sort of supplemented. But I think it would be helpful to understand the context in addition to the very eloquent speaker we had before. If you'd consider asking Courtney what the enrollment is, how many students are affected, how many people can't complete their current programs, because as in the 3.97 budget, that position is only a half a year in order to plan for a program for the following year. So we do not have budget infrastructure to continue students in architecture, the way I see it.
Courtney, you want to talk numbers in architecture and?
Yeah, I mean, I can talk numbers.
And I think specifically just how we accommodate the students in completing whatever their intended program was.
So I'm going to be honest with you, the decision to cut the architecture program was never discussed with me. It's something that I found out from reading, board packets. So not super prepared for the discussion, honestly, but there are a certain number of students who've taken the first two courses in the program, which would be the Architecture 101 and Interior Design courses, that would not be able to complete. Some of them are completing this year, and we will look for things like internships and other outplacements. Again, the design build engineering concept has never been discussed with me, so I feel like that's not something that I can present. The board that I work with, following RSA 188E and our expectations around Perkins and CTE in New Hampshire, has very specific processes regarding how we change program zip codes. It's really based on labor market information, not the specific whims of an individual. And it's a multi-year process when we have a business education collaborative that acts as our advisory board in CTE, and they provide that feedback, and all of that evidence is required to be part of our request to the Department of Education when we're doing those types of changes. So,
Well, your lack of preparation is not evident in what you just spoke of. You spoke very well and very explicitly about all of those things. Lots of concerns raised for me. So I don't know what, I mean,
Yeah. Ms. Richings, how do you see it fit to get upperclassmen through the architecture program?
Well, it's a very good question. I mean, they need a year of programming to meet all of the competencies and get through
the process. So, I mean, that's required. That's something that we need to find in order to meet the competencies, and, you know, it's not something that we can plan for when it's sprung upon us. And, you know, I've been waiting to hear the budget outcomes, and there's a chosen choice of non-communication with me from the principal. So,
Lisa, would you like to comment?
I guess I just want to circle back to, I know that we don't want to keep hammering on the process, but what we're hearing right now is why I would have wanted to know that this program was being contemplated prior to the start of the budget discussion if it was something that had the potential to be included in the budget. And I understand we got where we got. And I absolutely agree that some of this was way beyond our control. Like, it was a wild year in terms of the back and forth with the council. But major shifts in programming, the council's not telling us to do that. And so I guess my ask for future years would be when we're talking about whether it's adding Italian in the elementary school or changing what we're offering in CTE or altering like how we're doing music education or whatever it is, I'd love to know that in the fall and have the opportunity to have the dialogue with the people in our district who do this type of work so that we can understand as a board, what is it we're being asked to support? How is it going to serve kids? I mean, I'm going to vote no on the budget, not because I don't want to support funding for our kids, because I feel like I don't have a full grip on what it is that we're approving. And I understand that's a personal choice and a minority opinion, but I don't feel good about the amount of information that we have at this time.
Harry, Pip.
Sure. I was going to echo a bit of what Lisa said. I'm feeling uncomfortable for different reasons, but this does highlight some of them. I feel like, as you've all heard, I'm really uncomfortable with being a district that claims to support wellness, that first dissolved the wellness committee a couple years ago, that was working hard to develop a lot of important things, I thought, for our community. Now we're looking at a singular layoff when we have now gone back from a 2.9 budget back up to a 4.9 budget. And we're still looking at just one layoff, which is our wellness coordinator. And for me, that is the statement that we're making in doing that is not one that aligns, in my opinion, with our district values. And I'm also concerned about the way that the buyouts took place and were not aligned again with our strategic plan. So I too will not be able to vote for this budget tonight, even though, again, I would like to put forth a budget that is higher than 2.9 because I think our students deserve it. But I just don't feel like we have had the information that we needed to support this as it stands. I also am not totally convinced that the director of counseling is supported by as many people in our district as it should be if we're going to add such a significant position and role.
Carrie.
I guess one of the things, and we've sort of gone back and forth around the budget, and I probably should have gone first because it's back to architecture, but I think the CTE program in the state of New Hampshire, very different, lots of approvals, lots of process, lots of things. So, I think unless there's another component, we have to continue that architecture and do more planning, in my mind. I guess I see the bigger picture around the budget, the timing, last meeting before the first. Don't want to create district-wide panic with pink slips. In my view, we have to pass a budget tonight because of the implications if we don't. I would definitely want to know after that passage that this is addressed and that any proposed program meets guidelines, I guess, meets laws from the state and also process approval with our board.
I'd like to amend my motion to add.
You have to be recognized, and Brian's next, okay?
If I'm going to amend my motion that's on the table, though.
Okay, please
Can
wait. Please wait.
So I guess, is that something you feel like you can, if it's consensus, that you can hear and adapt after a lump sum budget, or do we really need to be adding funds?
I think anytime you have a CTE program that has declining enrollment, eventually you need to exit. So there's always going to be a tail on that program. And so I think the answer is not, we will add a new architecture person. We need to find another solution. And I don't have the answer to that problem tonight for you, beyond what was discussed. And obviously, we have disagreement within our team right now that is out in the open around how to deal with that particular singular issue. So I think there's a commitment and the commitment is finding a way to allow students to finish while simultaneously not continuing the program on the long haul, because we haven't had the numbers to support that.
Brian.
So I'm still going to support the 3.97, and part of the reason being is, again, what we're voting on is a number. We're not voting on all these
the other stuff is
executable, because the reality is what we put out here is not what's going to get voted on anyways at the council. It's going to be something different, likely. So he's going to have to continuously move things around. So for me, and again, I think you've heard what needs to be addressed, and I think you'll have to work with it though, and you may get even if we vote for the 66 million, it might get squashed down, right? And you're going to have to figure out the priorities and stuff. So for me, it's a bottom line number, and I think what was put here is the rationale behind the number you put down, not, and understanding that, this may get squashed at some point. So that's why I think we do need to support it. I will support it. And I don't love how we all got here, but I also recognize that I think this is a most responsible thing to do at this particular moment, at least for me.
Okay, Liz, and then I think we'll vote.
Okay. I just want to say thank you to Courtney for having the courage to speak about what position she's in as the CTE director, and also express my concern with, being out to dinner with my family and having people approach me about the culture at the high school and teachers not feeling like they can speak out, unfortunately. And so I understand there's a bigger issue here, and I think there's pros and cons, and there's stuff to work on, but I really think this highlights a really large issue at the high school, unfortunately, that's been brought to light in an unfortunate sense in part of our budgetary process. So I don't know if I need to amend my motion to make clear that we need to keep the architectural position in some capacity in what we hire to basically meet the RSA standards for what we're providing in our CTE program, because it doesn't sound like what's in this document or where we're at is part of that. And I don't want to have students like the student that came tonight left in a position that's wanting to pursue a career and then is deterred from that career because of a missed opportunity on our part to get this right. So I do agree, and I don't know if a motion needs to be made on the table to keep the architectural position, or because I'm a little bit concerned with what we have the line item control, right? That's kind of been brought up before. And so if the line item control is to vote on this design engineering position.
But our long-term conversation in-house, which has involved multiple people, has been that we were not going to continue this program. So that has, whatever's manifested most recently, this is not a new phenomenon that we were heading in this direction. The timing of this happened to come a little bit quicker than we thought as a result of the person occupying the position leaving a year earlier as a result of taking on the buyout. But this is not a new concept.
Okay. I appreciate that. I think you clarified that before, that this was an ongoing thing, and I do appreciate that. I just, I again emphasize the concern with the communication, and also, like, I don't want, Courtney to go back and be reprimanded for speaking out about the fact that she didn't know about this, and bringing that to light. Like, unfortunately, that's, however it's been brought up or whatnot, there's just sort of a lack of an understanding and a communication piece and a bigger, budget piece to maybe work out in committee. How are we presenting our budget to community? How are we presenting our budget to teachers who may be losing their jobs or, having to reorganize their programs? What does that look like? And I do have concern based on people approaching me out in public that I don't even want conversations I don't want to be having about teachers' ability to speak up about how they feel, or what they think is right or whatnot. So I do think there's an overall issue that needs to be addressed at the high school with the culture there at the moment, and I'm concerned that doing these things with different positions based on the high school's request, and I don't know as far as this document, but we talked about the curriculum coordinator position. I don't know if we're voting on that as part of my saying 3.97, or if we could come back at another meeting and get some real clarity about what positions.
So our goal would be, like we talked about at the last meeting, is that we would be working with the Administrative Association around the switching of that position from a teacher role that now has duties that are assigned that are connected to curriculum to an administrative role, which would allow the person to continue those duties and have evaluative power.
Okay, my motion on the table, though, is to increase the budget by 3.97. My motion on the table is not saying I want this design thing versus not having architecture or whatever, and it's not saying I definitely want the curriculum coordinator position. So I guess I'm wondering at this point if we could come back at a next meeting or a meeting after that when there's more clarity about how we're going to move forward in these situations with what positions are you moving forward with in a 3.97 budget. I think we're going to have some questions of the city council of what these positions look like, because I assume they're going to try to cut down if they can and ask questions about these positions. But I mean, I'm a little concerned that we can't really answer their questions right now about what this looks like too. So
we are confident that within the 3.97 that we can make, for example, the curriculum coordinator position effectively a budget neutral move, which is just a recategorization of the position. So we think that
I'm just saying in my motion for 3.97,
Yep.
with the school board having line item control, I'm asking, or maybe I'm requesting, that you come back at another meeting sometime after this and clarify what are the positions going to be.
I think you always have the ability to ask those questions all the time as we're operating and we're presenting stuff. You always have the opportunity, everyone, ask us questions about what
I would have liked to ask Phil more about that tonight. I mean, obviously I was kind of hinting at it in my question to him, but he was the one that was outspoken that he didn't want a curriculum coordinator at the middle school as part of the strategic plan. So having those questions or bigger questions around these positions, like, what is this CTE position going to look like? Could we repurpose and have somebody doing culinary and I don't know. But I guess my concern is that we haven't really been able to, like the kids teacher, we haven't really, that's in here, but we haven't really talked about that, right? So I would like to have more discussion about what the exact positions are and the moves are.
If the board wants to have, we need to vote tonight. We have to vote on a budget tonight. We can ask for more information at another meeting. But the reality is we have to have a number tonight.
Well, I mean,
we have to.
Let me just put. I mean, I think there's a political kind of cultural reality, which I think would be reflective of that. I think we're in uncharted territory in terms of technically what we need to do. We're beyond the charter at this point. We're beyond what's in the ordinance. Again, that's not solely of our own making. So anyways, I was just going to say that it might be true that the city is moving along in their process. They're building their books. They're doing all their stuff. We are being left behind in that, and there's some advantage to being more thoroughly a part of it. And then simultaneously, if you want to spend more time talking, we're here to continue to dig, continue to have conversations with you about.
Well, I guess
how we
it's,
would,
my question's not getting answered, though, Nancy, is my concern.
Well,
Is I'm saying 3.97, that's what I want to vote on, right? But as far as the individual line item positions that the school board has control over, of whether we shift this or have, architecture versus this. I understand, but that's not like the curriculum coordinator. That's not. Is that part of the 3.97 shift, or is that part of every shift across the board?
Is something we anticipate across the board. There would be a transition and cost.
So I think my concern is that.
Mutual transition in the position.
Okay, we're going to move the question. Okay, does everyone agree that we should move the question? Okay.
I think everybody knows how they're voting right now.
Maybe just
Okay.
ask for an update in the next meeting, just on this.
Always
on
available
some
for
of the
those,
questions
specifically
that
around those things. We're happy to collect questions. We're happy to provide additional, whether it's written material. I'd love to not be in a position where, I've got principals who are, but I'm also happy. I'm not trying to hide those people from you as well. So if we need to bring in Phil to talk about, Phil submitted the written material that is part of the rationale behind the kids program. It's Phil's words. But I'm happy to have Phil come in and reiterate what he's already.
I guess I want to know more about the curriculum coordinator position, because he said he didn't want it. Then we have it in this whole shift around. We're doing this whole shift up and down and around.
Yep.
I mean, he kind of spoke to it a little bit. He's like, okay, we're going to line up and line down. But that's my concern, is we're not getting those things answered.
Okay, Patty, may we have a roll call?
Can I do one more thing for process? Sorry, Nathan. Liz, you made the motion. Who seconded, so I have this right
Brian.
for the minutes?
I
It was Brian. Thank you. I want to make sure I have this for, no, I cannot remember. I think I wrote it down wrong. So, motion is to approve the budget with the 3.97% increase.
And I think we're supposed to put $66,604,798.
Yep.
I think we're supposed to put that in the
I will
motion.
put that in the motion. Okay. Lisa Rappaport.
No.
Carrie Nolte.
Yes.
Byron Maddow.
Yes.
Brian French.
Yes.
Tip Clues.
No.
Nancy Kleberg.
Yes.
Tish Campbell.
Yes.
Elizabeth Barrett.
Yes.
6-2 passes.
Congratulations, everyone. We have a budget, and we'll have more follow-up from Zach, I'm sure,
Continue to follow up.
as
Yep.
time goes by. But
She stayed the whole time.
I know.
10 points more. Great work.
I think the youth can stay up later than us, Brian, at this point.
That's probably
Yeah.
It was an interesting process, and we appreciate everyone working so hard on this and having such good questions, and we appreciate the work of our superintendent and our staff and all you board members.
Thank you, principals. You can get the heck out of here if you want to.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, no, we got to go through these.
No, we still got policy to do.
We
So.
might finish by 10 o'clock, but we might not. We'll see.
Second.
Okay, let's go to the teacher contracts. Consideration and approval of teacher contracts, correct? That's next.
Yep.
Okay. We'll turn it over to
Okay,
Zach.
so the list that you have, you got a set of teacher contracts. This represents the, this is all the folks who are on continuing contract outside of, and Pip is correct to point it out, outside of the wellness position, which is a position we would repurpose if we were in our options. But this includes those folks moving forward. Because of the early retirements, this would put us in a position where even if we were long-term held to the 2.9%, we could approve all these folks and still be in a position to meet that number. The advantage of that is we have a April 1st deadline to let folks know if we're not continuing their positions and we need to issue contracts. So anyways, this puts us in a position to do that, and so we would appreciate your approval of this list of folks on continuing contract for next year.
Yes, Byron. Why don't we have a motion first? Can you make a motion?
Yeah, motion to approve teacher contracts.
Do we have a
Second.
I have a question.
Yes.
And maybe I'm sorry if I'm behind on this one. Is the description of the actual contract? Has that all been negotiated out of these?
So all these are connected to, every one of these positions are connected to the CBA with the Association of Portsmouth Teachers, APT. So the job conditions are all in there. The what they would make in the upcoming year is still a little in flux.
Okay.
And so part of the not having that last column is we know that some of that is to be negotiated.
Okay.
So
thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Liz?
Just a request too. I mean, I think some of these, I don't know, as we go through contracting or the admin contracts at some point, if some of these should be shifted over to admin versus within the teacher contract. So, as we move forward.
Yeah. So I would just say that we, at the moment, we feel that all of the folks who are on there are appropriately categorized as teachers. And so if we do have are appropriately categorized as folks who fit underneath the Association of Portsmouth Teachers collective bargaining agreement. So as we go through stuff, if we have a disagreement with the association, we can work through that disagreement. As I said, the position that we anticipate recategorizing, that particular teacher right now lives inside of this set of approvals because we haven't finalized those conversations with the Administrators Association. So for now, we would make sure that we're in a position to say that she's continuing to have a job, and then we would finalize those conversations with the Administrator Association to finish that move.
Okay. Thank you.
I'd like to offer a friendly amendment that in approving this the list of contracts, that we offer the buyout incentive to the wellness coordinator upon
Seconded.
termination.
Seconded.
Well,
Or non-renewal.
What is a friendly amendment?
Amendment to, so I need to accept.
Sorry.
Can I ask, I don't even, is this even something that,
I think it's a separate motion. Well, my vote is contingent on that, so that's why I'm bringing it up now.
I guess my question is there precedent for,
I think it creates precedent.
yeah.
So I don't know. So I think there's a couple of different things at play. I think when we come to, so I think the thing for you to think about in terms of trying to suss through the spirit of what you're trying to accomplish is that we had conversations with the association in advance upon what the buyout was going to be, how we were going to structure it, what the timing was, how it was going to be fair for certain employees in terms of who would qualify. And we had discussions about those things, came to a verbal agreement before we went ahead. So this, if you have a singular payout to a singular person outside of that set, it might be something we would want to have a conversation with the association about, because they might want to talk about what's the criteria by which you would supply to the individual person, and does that criteria apply to other folks who might now be interested after the fact.
Pip, can I ask what the amendment was, the language specifically again?
That we offer the buyout incentive to the wellness coordinator at severance or whatever. I don't know actually how to phrase it.
Yeah, it's because I'm gonna say no. Yeah.
You made the motion, the seconder, it doesn't matter whether you.
Doesn't matter.
Okay. All right.
But
Any
no.
other discussion on the original motion? If you want to make a motion after we vote on this motion, then you can do that.
Or you can move to amend in not a friendly way and have someone second.
You can do it unfriendly.
Yeah, we don't always do that, but that's an option. That's something that's
It's on the card.
totally, barely part of procedure. So
So I would do that now?
Yep.
Okay, then I would like to amend the motion to include a payout. I'm not sure how to phrase it, but a payout to the laid off wellness coordinator in the same amount as the incentive, as the buyout incentive.
Do we have a second for that? For the amended motion?
Second that for the purpose of discussion, because I have questions
Do you
about
want
it.
to discuss? Go ahead.
I guess I am concerned about
doing something as a board that's like outside of the collective bargaining process around this.
Yeah.
However, I'm also concerned with the way that we went about removing a single position that wasn't voluntary. So I guess I'm wondering if there are any other remedies that we can entertain that might address the concern without doing it in a way that might be problematic in terms of our teacher's contract. And maybe there isn't, but I guess that's what I want to know.
Anything that's if it's anything connected to additional compensation that I would need to have.
Okay.
I think with that. Otherwise, I think because then it creates the situation. If I'm the association, I'd come back and say, so if you, the extremist position would be if you like certain employees, you give them a parting gift, and if you don't like other ones, you don't give them that. That would be the extremist kind of logic, right? And I think they would want to have a voice in. And very often, the association wants to have what is the criteria by which all members under the same criteria would be eligible for a certain change in working conditions and or payment. And so if I'm the association, I would want to, what is the criteria by which you would do this here, and does it apply to other people, and we expect you to universally apply that standard.
And do you know off the top of your head what the severance is in the contract? I mean, I know it's still under negotiation, so it might change by the time they're negotiating.
There's not a severance package for teachers.
Okay.
When we come to a conclusion, there's not a severance.
Okay.
So sometimes, there are, you can build in some contracts. Sometimes build in buyout packages. I haven't been at a district that's done that, but I know there are some districts that have done that. In year 2, we will offer blank, blank, and blank, and they'll build it into a contract.
Okay.
Is there any other discussion on the amended motion? Pip, Kerry, Liz.
I just wanted to say a little bit more about why I'm requesting this, which is that, and I feel very uncomfortable having this conversation in public. I think it started this way, so I'm continuing it this way. But I think that we're dealing with a situation where we offered buyouts. Many people chose to leave our district. This person chose to stay and remain committed to us. And then our response is, never mind, we don't want you here anyway. So it doesn't feel fair to me that we're paying other people to leave and that this person is
I just want to be
leaving.
clear about sequence.
Okay.
That very difficult when we're talking about individual employees, but the sequence is reversed. So the knowledge that there was a possibility of the position not being present was there, and then after that knowledge was present, then that buyout was still offered. So it wasn't a we didn't tell you, you didn't have an opportunity, now we grabbed it back and sorry. It was in the reverse sequence, so there was an opportunity in that case to take advantage of it.
Right. I think my point is that the person chose to stay committed to our district, and for me that should be rewarded instead of choosing to leave.
Kerry. Thank you, Pip.
This is such a hard, because we've just done the budget. We had changes in positions in the budget that we approved. It's really not appropriate for public discussion, but it has to be. It's really challenging. I think, though, that the precedent with the union, the buyout procedure that had already been completed, I don't feel comfortable with the amendment, not from a point of not wanting to do it, but I don't think that, I don't know enough about the mechanism and the ramifications of doing it in this way. And I think the discussion it's leading to is all protected personnel conversation that shouldn't be happening in public. So maybe we can add a non-public later or something. But I will be voting no on the amendment just because of those things.
Liz.
I guess I'm wondering if there's an opportunity and what that looks like to open up the buyout offer for an additional week after budget, before we, before the summer, before you hire. I mean, people are laughing and I think it's comical, but at the same time, why are we offering it in the first place? The general idea about offering buyouts is to get people out that are at the highest of the pay scale, helping our budget, and therefore bringing in, other people that, fresh faces and whatnot, new life to the area. And, I do think we've lost some people that are great through the buyouts, unfortunately. But I'm a little bit concerned with this idea of you better take a buyout or you're going to get your position cut. And I feel like that's kind of what happened in the sense that we're not rehiring these positions. And so I kind of wonder if there's an opportunity to offer a buyout opportunity for a week-long period. Then you're making it contractually to everybody, so you're opening it up to everybody. It's on the table for everybody, and it may end up helping our budget in the sense, unfortunately, you'll have to hire some new people, but it would bring down those budget categories if we were to do it. So I'd like to consider that if all this other stuff is an issue.
Can I jump in? Was someone else supposed to talk? Can I just jump in super quick with that?
Yeah, you're next.
I mean, teachers that we lose, everything about this process sucked, and I'm here saying to stop talking about it. Now that it's over, I guess it's okay.
You're not breaking your own rules?
Yeah, yeah. Good. It sucks. And all those teachers are fantastic teachers. And they were also the highest pay gap. I don't know why we would open it up to everyone. I don't see the point behind that.
Just lose more good.
It just, to me, I just felt complied to say we lost great teachers in this process. Just making that very clear.
If I could just respond, it's a strategy we've used for many years.
Correct. Yeah, there really wasn't a way around it.
It's a budget strategy device. And, we've done it for a long time.
Move the question on the amendment.
Okay, yes, let's move the question first on the amendment. Patty?
Liz Barrett.
Yes.
Hold on, I want to make sure I'm in the right column. Tish Campbell.
No.
Nancy Clayberg.
No.
Pip Clues.
Yes.
Brian French.
No.
Byron Amato.
No.
Carrie Nolte.
No.
Lisa Rappaport.
No.
Now we go back to the original, I'm sorry, what was the
So
vote?
now the original, so it was
Original motion's
2 to
back on the
6.
floor.
Original motion back on the floor to approve the teacher contracts.
Okay.
And going through again, Liz Barrett.
Yes.
Tish Campbell.
Yes.
Nancy Clayberg.
Yes.
Pip Clues.
No.
Brian French.
Yes.
Byron Amato.
Yes.
Carrie Nolte.
Yes.
Lisa Rappaport.
Abstain.
Okay, so 6-1 with 1 abstention passed.
Thank you very much. It'll allow
Thank
us
you,
to
everyone,
Generate contracts for folks.
by April 1st. Okay, consideration and approval of policies.
Motion to extend to 10:05.
Now let's give ourselves a little. How much time?
10:10.
10-10. I was good too.
I don't know. It depends
All
how
right.
much discussion.
We
there
have
is.
to do this, so why don't we just say till we get this done?
No.
No.
We'll extend it again if we have to. 10-10.
Motion
10:10.
10:10.
All in favor?
Hold on.
I need a
Roll call
second, I think.
to extend, we need a second.
Second.
Okay, so Carrie said 10-10, Byron said second. Liz Barrett.
Yes.
Tish Campbell.
Yes.
Nancy Clayberg.
Yes.
Pip Clues.
Yes.
Brian French.
Yes.
Byron Matto.
Yes.
Carrie Nolte.
Yes.
Lisa Rappaport.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, Pip, you're on.
Okay, I actually may want to turn this over to Patty if she's comfortable with it, because all of the approval, or all of the changes came very specifically from the changes that have occurred with Title IX federally.
I am happy to take that off your hands, yes. And
Thank you.
hopefully I can convince everybody at 10 o'clock to vote as a block
Should
for
we have a motion before?
all of those. So
So maybe the motion should come from one of the board members.
I'll make the motion. Oh, go ahead.
Motion to approve D1 through 6 or IVI, whichever one. you
okay.
1, 2.
So the Title IX policies,
Wait,
motion
I need a
to,
second.
Second.
and that was Brian, okay. Okay, so all of these policies had to be reverted to what we had prior to August of 2024 because on January 9th of 2025, the Eastern District of Kentucky vacated the 2024 Title IX rule that was in place, putting back into place the 2020 Title IX rule, which we need to be following. Right now, there are cases that are going on in the district that we are following these procedures and these policies, but our policies don't line up, and we really need to make everything match. We had to wait until NHSBA was able to get all of the specific language out to us. So all of these policies, AC, AC-R, ACAC, ACF, ACN, and IHBCA, all are now in alignment with the 2020 Title IX rule.
Carrie, and then Liz.
Is there a big overall implication for, could you just summarize the implication for complainants?
So complainants and respondents have different procedures to go through now with the 2020 rule, which was the one that was in place prior to August. And it's very much a higher standard to be considered for sexual harassment, where folks who would be putting in complaints of sexual harassment would have to meet the standard of being specific, pervasive, and objectively offensive, all three. Prior to this rule going back into place, it was a little bit more wide interpretation. This is very narrow, very specific. We are required to follow this rule because we get probably close to, in the last 3 years, $3 million in federal funding, which includes IDEA funding, which includes title funding, which includes a lot of federal funds that come to us. Medicaid funding is also tied to making sure that we're in alignment with this rule. So yes, the procedures are different. They're much more stringent. However, it's important to note that any other sorts of situations that would not be deemed as Title IX offenses could still be disciplined under other policies. For instance, JICK, the bullying policy, would cover some of those. So it's not to say that we would not be responding to these complaints. It would be the method and the procedures that we would use to respond to those complaints.
Thank you.
But would it be fair to characterize the package as a whole when you're talking about the narrowing, that there's a we're shifting back to a standard as we move between administrations? We're now shifting back to a standard that puts a higher amount of due process requirements in place in order to come to a conclusion
Yep.
that harassment occurred.
Yep.
And there's more protection
Yep.
for the accused in this set of standards
Yep.
than there were in the old set of standards.
Yep.
So it makes it more difficult for folks the institution to come to a conclusion through Title IX of a finding that this type of activity occurred, and makes it more likely for it not to fit within
Exactly.
the requirements of Title IX.
Yep.
So I just want, but Patty is right. We're not, Title IX is not the exclusive tool we have to deal with these types of behaviors between students or between students and adults. But this will make Title IX a probably
Very rare.
a
Very, very, very
rare
rare.
outcome where we
Yep.
will have a Title IX finding.
Lisa, and
No,
then Pip.
I was me next,
I'm
Nancy.
sorry, you were first. You were up first. Liz, Lisa, Pip.
I appreciate the work that's been done to revert back to these policies and the need to do that. My concern is that we had a non-meeting with council and we addressed policies. Obviously, it was a non-meeting, but I guess I'm wondering, what is the policy committee doing now to address everything that was brought up in those meetings? Because I'm a little bit concerned, or I thought maybe I'd be seeing updates based on our conversations, that there's other policies that we need to address due to this administration.
So that non-meeting that we had nothing to do with the Title IX policies. Title IX was not part of that discussion. There were some other policies that were under discussion that will be coming up at a special board meeting on April 16th that will be noticed appropriately. So that will be addressed during that meeting. These policies were not part of that non-meeting with.
No, I understand that. I guess I was just curious where those.
And I think
changes
that's coming back because we know
Yep.
we need to return to that conversation. I would also say that that set of dialogues is less connected to federal change than it is to state statutory
changes. Yep.
adjustments as a result of recent passages within the legislature.
Pip, who was first? Lisa and then Pip.
I was just going to piggyback off of what Zach said, so if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I just wanted to say that I am a member of the policy committee. I agreed to these changes. However, you can just call me the naysayer today because I'm not comfortable voting for policies that remove protections for many classes of people that we have worked hard to pass anti-discrimination policies for, and including pregnant women and people with lactation needs and LGBT kids. And, it's just, we're moving in the wrong direction by changing these policies, in my moral and ethical opinion. So I just wanted to put that out there, that even though I understand that that the current law indicates that we should do this, that I don't think it's the right direction for our district.
Lisa?
Yeah, what Pip said. I mean, I guess I feel this is, for me personally, a moment where I need to be a conscientious objector. I don't feel comfortable letting the Eastern District of Kentucky, that is wildly out of alignment with what I believe to be the values of this school district and this community, dictate how we treat our students and our staff and the people who come into our buildings every day expecting a certain level of respect and protection from harassment. So I guess the one ask I would have, and I do think this is going back to the policy committee, is that as we are rejiggering other policies, I want us to be crystal clear to the fullest extent possible in all of our policies that people who might have previously relied on Title IX for protection, where do they now go? And I think right now that's a bit of a black hole for many people who are some of the most vulnerable people and who are some of the most difficult and challenging transitions in their lives, where they may not feel like we have their backs. And I'm not okay with that. So I would just like to ensure that we handle that. And I know that we've had some ongoing discussions with council, with our administrative team, and I know we're working on it, but part of why I'm voting no tonight is I'm deeply uncomfortable taking these protections away without having the other protections already clarified in the most, absolutely hyperbolically supportive language possible. Is what I would say.
It looks like looks like the policy committee did put notes in, for example, ACAC, page 11 and 12. There's notes that are interjected in there. I don't know if you can speak to those at all, but maybe that's sort of clarifying where you would go without the process there. Sorry, to Lisa's point.
Carrie?
I do agree with both Pip and Lisa's comments. I guess the challenge is that the balance of jeopardizing district federal funding is where I feel like putting the district into legal compliance, regardless of what the you know what I'm trying to say, is more paramount to me from a board perspective. And although I would love to abstain, I guess I'm curious if what the passing, there needs to be a majority of members present. I mean, it's just kind of like, okay, a couple of us can do it, but not everybody can do it, but we got to pass it. But it just feels a little like, who's going to be the one to take this one? And then maybe we can cycle and do the next one. And I don't.
Brian, let me.
I think we need to make a motion to suspend the rules for another 10 minutes. Extend our time.
Okay. Do we have
second?
Just 10 minutes, though.
Okay. Brian and Liz.
Well, public comment.
Do we need to do a roll call, or can we just do it?
Tish, you've been still.
We'll do
Tish,
it.
say yes.
How many more minutes?
10 more
Yes.
minutes.
Okay.
Okay, Tish, you're in? Okay,
Yes.
did you want to say something, Brian? about-
I echo exactly what Carrie says.
said yes.
I
Just don't want to put us in jeopardy.
Byron, do you want to say?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's grotesque, but I think we have to vote for it. I don't, yeah.
I agree. Okay, let's have a roll call vote, please, Patty.
To approve the policies listed. Liz Barrett,
Yes.
Tish Campbell,
Yes.
Nancy Clayberg,
Yes.
Pip Clues,
No.
Brian French,
Yes.
Byron Meadow,
Yes.
Carrie Nolte,
Yes.
Lisa Rappaport.
Hell no.
6-2 passes. The next one's easy. This one's a repeal because this doesn't apply anymore, and a lot of what's written in this has been put into the new, old ACAC that y'all just approved.
Motion to approve
Elimination.
ACA.
ACA.
Elimination of ACA,
Second.
but not the Affordable Care Act.
Yep.
This ACA.
I don't know if we have that kind
Approve.
of power.
Is there any
Policy.
discussion? Can we have a roll call, Patty?
Absolutely. Liz Barrett.
Yes.
Tish Campbell.
Yes.
Nancy Clayberg.
Yes.
Pip Clues.
No.
Brian French.
Yes.
Byron Maddow.
Yes.
Carrie Nolte.
Yes.
Lisa Rappaport.
No.
6-2 passes.
Okay, and should we let the board know we are having a policy committee April 16th at 10 or 11?
11 a.m.
11 a.m.
and it will be posted
And it will be with council.
with council.
With council to, what's the name of the,
Wally Star.
Wadley Star.
And that will be to discuss, it's at 11 o'clock in the morning on April 16th to discuss JBAB, JLP, and JICC.
Can you tell us what those are?
JBAB is the, hold on.
Transgender.
This is all,
Gender
yeah,
equity policies.
equity policies, yeah.
Okay, so it's those.
You're giving me a pop quiz at 10 o'clock at night, Nancy.
We thought,
But broadly,
I got the letters.
now, you don't have to go to the meeting if you're not available, but we thought we would let the board know because we're meeting with council.
I think if,
You know, so if you're available, please come.
I was just gonna say, if we're gonna make it a special board meeting, I think we have to have quorum. So there needs to be at least 5.
either you're in
Oh,
or,
okay, all
either
right.
we're in or not.
Yeah.
You're right about that.
Yeah.
Well, if you could let me know if you can attend, and if we have 5, we'll post it. If we don't have 5, we
Then we
won't
just
post
post it
it.
as a-
Yeah, we'll just post
just
it
post
as
it
a
as a
policy
policy
committee meeting.
Yep.
Okay,
Nancy,
so
I
if
have a-
everybody could let me know within the next couple of days,
What was the date on that, Nancy? Sorry.
April 16th.
Possible to change the timing or no?
No.
We have legal representation
Legal's
coming.
So I have two questions about that meeting, Nancy.
Okay.
One is I would like to ensure that our GSA advisor from the high school, Cynthia Young, is included. She has requested to be included in this conversation, and I would like to have her there. I would also like to make a request that people present be able to ask questions of council. And if it's a policy committee meeting where people have to sit in the corner away from the table and not speak, it doesn't really lead us to have a conversation with council. So I think,
Well, if it's a special board meeting, then you can ask questions. It's
are
not a-
you saying that's dependent on how many board members show up, whether you're going to let the people who do show up speak? I guess that's what I'm trying to clarify.
If we have 5 or more, then it's a board meeting and people can speak.
And if it's 4, nobody can speak.
That would be my answer to the question. I don't
think
know
that's
how.
a very productive answer.
I mean, I am the chair of the committee, so do I get to make that choice?
Yes.
And
Pip will let us know.
how long do we have council for? Like, have we booked them for 2 hours, 3 hours? Like,
We have an hour and a half.
We have an hour and a half, yeah.
3-hour meeting?
Okay, well, if you could let Pip know,
Hour and a
and then,
half.
if every, Pip, are you listening to me? If you let Pip know in the next couple of days whether you can attend or not, then we'll know the appropriate way to post the meeting. They're always public, but anybody can go, but you don't speak if you generally go. Okay, let's move on. Thank you, everyone. We have several committees that submitted reports. Thank you very much. They're all in your packet. Future agenda requests. I checked the page and there wasn't anything on there, but I know Lisa really wants to talk about world language. We'll do that as soon as we can.
Okay. I guess I wonder, because there's like 9 or 10 things on there? Are any of those other ones being scheduled?
Well,
There's quite a few.
They've been
There's like
addressed.
multiple different ones.
Yeah,
with
they've been
languages.
addressed. A lot of them were, budget will handle it. So I'll go back and review it now.
Okay, thank
But
you.
I know world language is something.
There's something you want to refresh or whatever, maybe you can put a note in there.
Sure.
Okay, it's time to reopen public comment. Do we have anyone that would like to speak? You have 3 minutes.
We got a guy over here.
Go ahead. All right. I'm just going to fire off some bullet points at you.
Your name and address.
Please give us your name and address.
Hugh
You have
Gatchell.
3 minutes.
Okay, Hugh Gatchell, 120 Hillcrest Drive, Portsmouth, New Hampshire. So my first point is just to, I think, with the teachers, unfortunately, I mean, obviously the system, how everything's going right now, federally, really sucks. And I think, just the fact of letting go some teachers is unfortunately a reality that we're going to have to face. And I think consolidating a lot of classes at the high school could be really productive. I've been in classes that have 12 people, and I've learned almost nothing. And I've been in classes where I've been with 27 kids, and I've learned the most I've ever learned in a class. And then school counselors, that one guidance counselor, in my personal opinion, and I think the opinions of many others, guidance counselors generally are who you go to for scheduling needs. And if you need more emotional support, that would be you go to someone like Mike Winters, who's a school therapist, counselor, not guidance counselor. And then electronics I had put down, that was there's a lot of teachers that have these Promethean boards that cost $5,000 a pop, and I know quite a few teachers that have had them sitting in their rooms all year, don't know how to use them. And those add up quickly. That's just 2 people, that's 10,000 right there. And then, let's see. Oh, and about the architecture program, I think if Cynthia Young does go on her sabbatical next year, then you could take her. She has a rotating program every other year, and you could take that history of art and architecture program. You could find someone that specializes in architecture, hire a part-time job, someone to cover in an architecture capstone and to cover Cynthia Young's art and architecture of empires class. But that, and then another side note, just randomly, as someone who is a member of the LGBTQ community, I would really prefer, Liz, if you did not groan when Lisa brought up a GSA, which I'm not personally part of, but
I don't think I had grown that. Sorry.
All right, whatever.
You felt I did. I'm also part of
Regardless.
the LGBTQ community.
Okay, great. Anyway, yeah, that's pretty much it for me.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Petra?
Peter Huda, 280 South Street. So I've sat here for 3.5 hours, and this board has no idea what you just voted for. And this process should not have happened. This shouldn't have been so complicated or had lack of communication. And the process, as was stated here and over here, coming from a career doing this, nothing was explained to anybody. And I agree with Pip and I agree with Lisa. The original budget was put out at $4.99. You made changes. They never got it. Then you came out with this. They didn't get it. I went through this and I found it today. This should have been out on the drive, just like everything else. It's public information. I paid the salaries of these people, and I'd like to know what they're getting and what they're voting for. I read your 3 scenarios here. I'm looking at the first one. like our students said, and 2.9, staff impact, no immediate. Staff impact, none. Staff impact, none. I'm not understanding this. Then you go into scenario 2. What are you putting in here? What have you included in the 3.9? And I will be honest with you, I will be at the budget meetings, and I will be asking the same questions as the members asked. What is in here, and what have you approved? Because this process was a mess. Thank you.
Thank you, Petra. Anyone else? Go ahead. Please give us your name and address.
Motion to extend till the end of public comment for 5 minutes.
Second.
6 minutes.
Tish, say yes.
Tish?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name's Kara Carlson, 51 Marjorie Street again. I was listening to the entire budget thing, and I think that if we don't go with the 3.4%, there is no actual subject in there that says in the 3.97 that there will be an architecture sort of capstone for the students who are completing. I, along with 4 of my teammates and a few kids in the interior design program, we're just going to be stuck. We've invested 2 or 3 years into this program. There's nothing that's going to be done. I've heard that in New Hampshire you can't just cut a CTE program without offering some sort of completion to it. And with that capstone, I think combining different aspects of the art and architecture, I'm actually taking that course next year because I'm interested in it. Maybe that would give me some avenue to do it. But in order to have that, we would need the software. We would need the resources such as all the architecture toolkits with scales and straight edges, even down to trace paper. Like, if we can't get trace paper, how are we going to build up our buildings? So if we're going to do that, then we'd need our resources investing in year-long student license packages for the software we use, Chief Architect, investing in different scales if they break, things like that. If we don't have a budget for that, I don't see how really these kids are going to complete it. I know along with myself, there are a ton of other kids. They're just like, what are we going to do? I remember my teacher explaining it to our whole group, and they're like, this just ruined my day. It just ruined my day. I was having such a good day. My teacher's retiring. My program is being cut right in the middle of my entire experience, which I'm devoting my life to because I'm going into a career in it, and it doesn't make sense. Even though enrollment numbers are low, in the past years, half of the Intro to Architecture classes were cut in order to put woodshop in. That is one of the reasons the enrollment is low, because you're having the woodshop kids in there, which is great for people going into construction trades. Yeah, woohoo, trades. But at the same time, you're ruining the chances for architecture and getting the enrollment numbers are low, the independent study numbers are low, but we should have a way to complete it. And I think in every possible way, I think we need to try that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kara. Esther?
Esther Kennedy, 41 Pickering Ave. First of all, I want us to thank all the 3 students that spoke tonight. I think they did a tremendous job. I think if we had listened to them, this meeting probably would have been an hour and a half. And I hope some of them run for city council. I do believe the process went awry. I do believe that in our school board meetings, when they do the budget, we spend time as administrators with the school board and we do line items. We go through the budget and we spend 3 nights and we take different programs each night and we go through, whether it's our CTE program, whether it is our high school, middle school, student service, we go through that. I think that's what you're missing, because there's a lot of confusion here, and you didn't have that opportunity. And that's when our school board asks questions, and that's when they get understanding of what is happening in the school. So I would encourage you to put that in your plan. I would like to thank you tonight for talking about the special ed. I do believe that is a big place of savings that you could really look at and make some differences. Going forward, I also think that there needs to be a clarity of what is Portsmouth students and what is sending district. I had to go and ask Nate, do you pay for sending district out of district placement kids in your Portsmouth budget? And the answer was no. I don't know if you knew that or not, but I think that those are kind of things that you need. And lastly, you're not taking enough credit for your revenues. What are your revenues? They're not well displayed in your budget. It's not even there. And usually there's a revenue sheet that I know that needs to be, at least in my school district, voted on by my school board. I would encourage you to look at your revenues and see ways maybe to gather those revenues and maybe bring them back to the school board and not just send them to the city coffers. So I would encourage you to look at that whole process. And lastly, I want to say that the city manager cannot change your budget. It's in the RSAs. The city manager has to accept your budget for what it is. She might not agree with it, and she might say, I don't agree with it publicly, but once you decide on your budget and vote for your budget, that becomes a school board budget. It's no longer the superintendent's budget. I've said over the years, the superintendent shouldn't even be presenting it to the city council. The school board chair should be, because that's the way it works in most districts, because it becomes their budget. So I encourage you to keep that in mind. And, as you go forward, you can fight for your budgets as well. I mean, I heard your contemplation. Sorry. That's what I just would recommend.
Thank you. Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Anybody else? Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Tish, how do you feel about adjourning?
Yes, please.
Good night,
Bye, Tish.
everyone. Thank you.